That is Donald Trump's deregulated economy getting a $2 trillion stimulus followed by another $2 trillion stimulus. And the boom is going to be accelerated by immunity, herd immunity, beginning in Britain. I'm looking at the Telegraph this morning. Exclusive. Great Britain will achieve herd immunity on Monday. Herd immunity on Monday. That means basically Great Britain is going to reopen very soon. What's that doing? It's driving the stock market crazy. Investors with big and small, both big and small, are driving stock gains with borrowed money, according to this morning's Wall Street Journal. So up, 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 up. Amazon last night revealed scorching India growth. And that means Amazon will go up, up, up. I own Amazon. It's the only stock I own. I guess I own some Palantir too, but just a little bit because I wanted to see the reports from the company. But Amazon is going to lead the market again. And then the big story is housing. Housing. And in this regard, I know a little bit because of the realtors that I work with, right? I work with Tracy Cousineau in Atlanta. You can call her at 855, my expert, really one of the best realtors in all of the United States. And Atlanta is hot, hot, hot. Tracy Cousineau, 855, my expert. I work with John Leahy in Washington, D.C., within the Delmarva, that's Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia, for the people who are outlanders. Inside the Beltway, outside of the Beltway, Jonathan Leahy is going crazy. And you can call him, I'll get him at myhomesoldguarantee.com. And it's John, Jonathan, Leahy, Lahey. Why am I telling you this? Because without a realtor, you're not going to buy a house. Because listen to this. I have here a story from Realtor.com. The 10 hottest housing markets in the United States. These are not just double-digit growths year over year. This is 30 and 40%. Number one, which is a little bit surprising, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Number two, Santa Maria, California, where it's gone up 48%. Coeur d'Alene has gone up, I don't know, it's off the charts, somewhere above 48%. Santa Maria, number two. Number three, East Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. Median list price change, 43%. Billings, Montana, 41%. Boulder, Colorado, 40%. That wasn't cheap to begin with. Austin, Texas, 36%. Tupelo, Mississippi, 35%. Pittsfield, Massachusetts, 33%. Bend, Oregon, 33%. Sioux City, Iowa, 32%. Those are the top 10. Now, none of those are like D.C. or Atlanta or L.A. or San Francisco or Boston, where the markets are crazy too. The only place where the market isn't crazy is New York City, where people are fleeing. So it just so happens the Wall Street Journal puts out a story, why are home prices soaring? A couple of reasons. One, Jamie Dimon of J.P. Morgan Chase predicted a Goldilocks moment yesterday, a post-pandemic boom for the U.S. economy. The stimulus programs, political infrastructure package, euphoria around the end of the pandemic will lead to incredible growth this year. It's actually Donald Trump's growth, but Joe Biden will benefit from it. Fed officials say risk of inflation is broadly balanced. Well, I don't think so. And by the way, I'm going to make this my economic story of the morning. So go to andrewandtodd.com. Andrewandtodd.com. If you want to finance a house in a situation like this, you'd better have a qualified letter from them. Andrewandtodd.com, 888-888-1172. I'm also going to look at the market now, brought to you by Birch Gold, because the market yesterday had a big day, and gold went up to 1743. Now, about 2 weeks ago, it was at 1700, even 1690, and I told you, time to get in, never goes below 1700. The 10-year Treasury dropped to 1.65% yesterday, and gold is at 1743. And yesterday, the Dow went up 16 points, and the S&P went up 6, and the NASDAQ dropped 9, but Amazon went up $55, or close to 2%. And I say to myself, what's going on? It's the tech boom is back, fueled by easy money. But why are these housing prices going crazy? Why is Tracy Cousineau running around like mad in Atlanta and Jonathan Leahy running around like mad in D.C. and andrewandtodd.com working around the clock. Why are interest rates this low? And why are home prices going up? So if interest rates are this low, why are home prices going up? Number one, that's supply and demand. You can get more house for your money with interest rates low. But this is from the Wall Street Journal. Housing prices are climbing across the country, and the cause is more than soaring demand. One overlooked culprit is a lumber shortage made worse by a U.S. tariff on imports from Canada. The U.S. and Canada had a softwood lumber agreement to manage prices with quotas from 2006 to 2015. When it expired, U.S. lumber producers filed anti-dumping and countervailing duty complaints. They claimed Canada unfairly subsidizes and dumps lumber in the U.S., and the Trump Commerce Department imposed the tariff in 2017. Now, the S&P CoreLogic Case-Shiller National Home Price Index, which measures average home prices in metro areas, was up 11.2% in the 12 months through January. That is the highest house price year-over-year move in 15 years, 11% across the entire United States. Increased demand is part of the story as millennials start families, Americans flee city, and interest rates remain low. The National Association of Home Builders reported last month that unprecedented spikes in lumber prices have added more than $24,000 to the price of an average new single-family home, nearly $9,000 to the price of a multifamily home since April 17. Yeah, I was down buying some 2x4s, and they're up to $6. Doing some work around the house. $6. I'm going to go over and help Dwayne with his backyard. Dwayne, have you been over to the Home Depot for that backyard? You figured out why the prices?
I have probably given $4,000 to Home Depot in the last 2 months.
Yeah, and you got half as much as you expected to. Because lumber is up 50% in some of these places. Do you want me to come shop for you and help you a little bit?
No, let me tell you about the lumber. You know, when we did the framing of our house, right, we added about 650 square feet to our house, okay? 3 rooms, a master bedroom, bath, and a family room, okay? The lumber cost us $20,000.
Well, it's a good show. You should listen to it. I just read the Wall Street Journal editorial on
I know. That. I was nodding and agreeing with you. It cost a blinking fortune.
I'm just telling you, people, do not wait around. Go to andrewandtodd.com, get a mortgage. If you live in D.C., call Jonathan Leahy. If you live in Atlanta, call Tracy Cousineau. I got realtors everywhere. AndrewandTodd.com have realtors everywhere in the United States. If you need a realtor, call them. Other news this morning. Joe Manchin. I will not vote for. I will not eliminate or weaken the filibuster. This is not now, not ever, never. Doggone it. Joe Manchin has this long piece, and immediately I saw it and I said, well, that's it. That's done. But then I went on to read it. And not only is he against changing the filibuster, Joe Manchin says, I do not believe budget reconciliation should replace regular order in the Senate. How is that good for the future of the country? That means no more 51 to 50 votes on reconciliation once a year. And immediately, of course, the media started working on him. I got friends in the media immediately started pounding him. Now, maybe he means it. Maybe he means maybe. No, he does not mean maybe. Read his lips. No new reconciliation budgets. That's good news. So Joe Manchin's going to have to negotiate, and the corporate income tax hikes he wants are going to have to be negotiated. There's other news. I'll come back to it. Tiger Woods was driving 85 miles per hour in a 45-mile-per-hour zone when he crashed. I'm glad the guy is alive. He went around a turn on the Palos Verdes Peninsula. Most people wouldn't make that.
Now known as the Tiger Woods Memorial turnoff.
Yeah, it's like yours. Syria says 4 soldiers wounded in Israel airstrikes. Netanyahu says we won't be bound by an Iran deal that threatens us with annihilation. And I love the column, We Should Ban Children from Social Media Before It Ruins Their Futures by Michael Deacon in the Telegraph. I'm all for that. But during this break, go to andrewandtodd.com, go to Birch Gold via hughgold.com, or text my name, Hugh, to 474747 and come right back.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show. You cease to amaze me is sometimes the stupidity that comes out of your mouth.
The expression is never cease to amaze me as you're calling me stupid. I'm just saying.
About the George Floyd trial.
Actually, it's the Derek Chauvin trial. George Floyd is dead.
YouTube last
So as you call me stupid, just pointing out a few things.
year, they had white officers answering calls to white people. Two of them had knives, and in both instances, the officers took them down without any incident. Why don't you have your research staff research that sometimes before you go around flapping your gums about...
flapping my gums? Is that racist?
It seems like you just on one side of the fence all the time, the one that butters your bread, I guess. So you have a nice evening.
On one side of the fence all the time, the one that butters your bread, you have a nice evening. I will say one more time, sir. The police kill every year more unarmed whites than they kill unarmed blacks. Heather McDonald says that a black man is 18 and a half times more likely to kill a white cop than the other way around. Is that relevant to you? The number one cause of preventable death for young white men is accidents, car accidents, drownings, things like that. Number one cause of preventable death for young black men, homicide, almost always at the hands of another young black man. The percentage of blacks who are unarmed, killed by cops, represents roughly 1/3 of 1% of all the blacks who are killed in this country every year. Is that at all relevant?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Even when they're not on some cable channel shock jock platform, they don't care. One of the bravest, best Americans I know was my colleague, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. She's sitting there at the White House Correspondents Association annual dinner when somebody else who says she's a comedian, well, says this as she's standing next to her.
Every time Sarah steps up to the podium, I get excited because I'm not really sure what we're going to get. You know, a press briefing, a bunch of lies, or divided into softball teams. It's shirts and skins, and this time don't be such a little Jim Acosta. I actually really like Sarah. I think she's very resourceful. Like, she burns facts, and then she uses that ash to create a perfect smoky eye. Like, maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's lies. It's probably lies. And I'm never really sure what to call Sarah Huckabee Sanders. You know, is it Sarah Sanders? Is it Sarah Huckabee Sanders? Is it Cousin Huckabee? Is it Auntie Huckabee Sanders? Like, what's Uncle Tom but for white women who disappoint other white women?
Hilarious, Michelle Wolf. So when that party, when those people who voted for Joe Biden and for Hillary Clinton tell you they care about the illegal immigrants crossing our border, they're lying to you. They don't give a damn.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
And they are not insurgents, and we are not being invaded, which, by the way, is a white supremacist idea, philosophy.
She doesn't know what philosophy means, and that's okay. She's not very bright. She has a very big, very substantial following, I should say. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is articulating why she's angry at the people that are angry, that the left seems completely uninterested
That was the sound of the economy yesterday, and on Tuesday night, I want to thank Kurt Schlichter. Colonel Kurt was in for me yesterday because I was up to the early hours of the morning, which meant I would have been up all night long to do the show with Peter Thiel, Mike Pompeo, and Robert O'Brien at the Nixon Library in an exclusive seminar. The Nixon Seminar is the 15 smartest young national security experts who are not in the government, who are serious about national security, plus Secretary Pompeo, plus Ambassador O'Brien, and we had a special guest on Tuesday night. It went late. Special guest Peter Thiel, entrepreneur, author, VC investor, billionaire. And so Peter Thiel and Pompeo and O'Brien are sitting in one studio. I'm in another studio running the 15 people on Zoom. I am a menace on Zoom, as people know, but in any event, I was on Zoom. And Peter Thiel just unloads on a few people. And this stuff goes viral yesterday. So here's Peter Thiel at the Nixon Library talking about big tech, cut number 15.
I do think that that seeing China in an adversarial way would be, a helpful start. And Silicon Valley has not been that good on this. Although it's, it's in some ways it's structurally better than Wall Street or Hollywood or the universities, because Silicon Valley, for the most part, has been frozen out of China. And so it's not, it doesn't naturally believe that it can get that much out of it. If you look at the big five tech companies, Google, Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft, virtually very, very little presence in China. So they aren't naturally, a pro-China constituency. Apple is probably the one that's structurally a real problem, because the whole iPhone supply chain gets made from China, and Apple is the one that has real synergies with China. But then there is something about the woke politics inside these companies. The way they think of themselves is not really American companies, and it's somehow very, very difficult for them to have a sharp anti-China edge of any sort whatsoever.
We're going to put these three major clips together for you and post it over at hughhewitt.com so you can see them all. And you should be getting my podcast from Apple or Spotify, et cetera, so you can hear it all. But if you want to watch the entire 90 minutes with Pompeo, O'Brien, Peter Thiel, and our 15 seminar members, go to nixonseminar.com. But what Peter said that really flipped people out was on Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin is the millennials' favorite new thing, and it turns out the Chinese communists might like it too. Cut number 17.
From China's point of view, they want to get, they don't like the U.S. having this reserve currency, because it gives us, a lot of leverage over, Iranian oil supply chains and all sorts of things like that. They don't want the renminbi to become a reserve currency, because then you have to open your capital account and you have to do all sorts of things that they really don't want to do. I think the euro, you could think of as, was in part a Chinese weapon against the dollar. It didn't, the last decade it hasn't quite worked out that way, but that was, China would have liked to see two reserve currencies like the euro. And, even though I'm sort of a pro-crypto, pro-Bitcoin maximalist person, I do wonder whether at this point Bitcoin is also, should also be thought in part as a Chinese financial weapon against the U.S., where it threatens fiat money, but it especially threatens the U.S. Dollar, and China wants to do things to weaken it. So it's sort of, China is long Bitcoin, and perhaps from a geopolitical perspective, the U.S. should be a little bit be asking some tougher questions about exactly how that works. But some
shook up Bitcoin big time yesterday, and that little clip that we posted had 140,000 views. So I'm going to send you all to nixonseminar.com if you want the longer conversation. We come back, I'll play you Mike Pompeo. I note, however, that gold is the original Bitcoin. That's what I think. They're looking for something that is can't be manipulated by government. It's always been gold. It's always been gold. That's why gold is at $1,743. If you want to buy some gold, you don't understand Bitcoin, never buy anything you don't understand, go to hughgold.com. It's run by Birch Gold. They're the best in the world. Or text my name, Hugh, to 474747. Don't buy what you don't understand. If you understand Bitcoin, fine, but don't buy what you understand. When we come back, Mike Pompeo picked up on this Bitcoin thing. Then your phone calls at 1-800-520-1234. The boom you hear is Donald Trump's boom. Stay by.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you in part by Birch Gold Group.
Trending now on the Charlie Kirk Show.
And they are not insurgents, and we are not being invaded, which, by the way, is a white supremacist idea, philosophy.
She doesn't know what philosophy means, and that's okay. She's not very bright. She has a very big, very substantial following, I should say. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is articulating why she's angry at the people that are angry, that the left seems completely uninterested in complaining that the Biden administration is actually doing everything on the border worse than the Trump administration. But why is it that it feels as if we are slow to move against Joe Biden? I remember against Barack Obama. It was organic. It was real. There was a response that was unscripted. Patriots across the country rose up and started Tea Party groups. Candidates ran for office. Rick Santelli's famous rant in 2009 or 2010. And I'm reminded by a phrase that substance does not matter as much as style in the eyes of most voters. You see, what we make fun of Joe Biden for is actually a winning quality to most voters. The fact that Joe Biden is kind of sleepy and slow, the fact that Joe Biden falls upstairs, which is a rather remarkable thing, it's exactly what the ruling class wants. You see, Joe Biden is like the grandparent that kind of falls asleep in front of the television at 7 o'clock.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Did you move to LA from New York?
I moved very shortly thereafter because while I couldn't write for Letterman, I was perfect for Johnny Carson. And so I asked my now friend, David Letterman, would he please send a package out to his connections? He's already been guest hosting that show for years and whatnot.
So what happened? The Tonight Show said, nah, we're not interested.
Yeah, Johnny was going through a miserable divorce. And by the way, I remember the very first joke because he did use some of the material I sent out. The very first joke. Now, you wouldn't be able to do this joke today because it's body shaming. And you have to remember the reference is, I guess now 35, maybe even, gosh.
Is this a Toady Fields joke or a Mama Cass Elliott joke?
Sort of. All right. Remember Karnak the Magnificent? The answer is hip, hip, hooray. The question, describe Liz Taylor putting on her jeans.
That is a great joke. What do you mean you can't do a joke like that today? That is a great joke. You just did it on this program. I love it. Hip, hip. So has that joke ever appeared anywhere?
Yes, every time I'm on the air.
Every time you're on the air. Hip, hip, hooray. Well, when you write a joke like that, that's like I think Dick Cavett first major joke was there's a new restaurant and it's Chinese German. The only problem is an hour after you eat there, you're hungry for power.
That's a great joke. Yep.
It's a stupid joke, but I mean, anyway. Okay, so hip hip hooray.
Now, can I tell a slightly off-color joke?
If you don't, we'll be offended.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Coca-Cola, cowards, read the damn bill. It doesn't suppress anybody unless you're of the mindset, if you're black, you're too dumb to figure out how to get ID to vote. That's suppression because we know how black people are. We know how brown people are. They're not intelligent enough to get an ID put together. They can't go down to the DMV or they can't figure out a way to get just a state ID. They can't. We can't expect our poor black friends to do that. That's the left. That's the mindset. That's the thinking of Democrats. Now, Ed Bastian's company, Delta, won't be so forgiving for somebody who's too ignorant to get an ID and let them get on their plane, because you can't fly Delta without a photo ID, a legitimate ID. But don't you dare expect a black or brown Georgian to be smart enough to figure out how to produce an ID when they vote. That's suppression. No, that's not suppression. That's idiocy. That is stupidity at the highest level, and everybody knows it. So good for the Georgia State Legislature for pushing back and telling Delta to go stick it.
Welcome back, America. This is a request bomb from Captain Mark Vandroff. He really loves Barry Manilow. And Captain Mark is driving to work this morning. He helped me out with my pronunciation of Tupelo in Mississippi. And he said, since I did that for you, can you please play some Barry Manilow? He particularly likes, I write the songs. So he's driving along right now. He's tapping his feet inside the Beltway. He just loves it. And so I don't understand. He goes to Vegas to see Barry Manilow. He and the fetching Mrs. Vandroff fly off, and they see Barry whenever Barry does Vegas. He really likes this part where he hits it. I've seen a tear in his eye. The man puts destroyers in the water, builds frigates, negotiates in the Middle East, but Barry Manilow brings him to his knees. Good morning, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt, and I'm here to tell you I love this column in the Telegraph. Now, when I do my show prep, I do it this way. I start with the Times of Israel, and I don't understand what's going on in Israeli politics again. Michael Oren is coming up. Then I go to the Financial Times, it's in Great Britain, and the Telegraph. So those are my three international papers. Then I come to the United States and do the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and the Washington Post. Then I just cruise around. And I get most of my stories from that, and I do it late at night, so it's ready for me in the morning. And yesterday I stopped, and I saw this column from the Telegraph. And I just want to read it to you. We should ban children from social media before it ruins their futures. Luckily, my son, writes Michael Deacon, parliamentary sketch writer, that means columnist in British. Luckily, my son is too young to know what social media is, but when he finds out, I'm going to prohibit him from using it for his own good. I was going to start by saying that social media is the most dangerous invention since the nuclear bomb. But then I realized that would be an absurd piece of hyperbole. After all, you can easily argue that nuclear weapons help to preserve peace. On social media, by contrast, people do nothing but fight. So really, social media is far worse. There are two main reasons it is so dreadful. The first is that it's full of people expressing opinions we disagree with. Before the advent of social media, that wasn't anything we had to put up with all that much. That was because we formed friendships with people who thought much the same way we did. We married people who thought much the same we did. And we only read whichever newspaper best reflected the world as we saw it. Of course, we were at least dimly aware that in society as a whole there existed people who held opinions that were different from our own, but we tended not to marry those people or read their newspapers. As a result, we were able to live undisturbed in our happy, soundproof little bubbles. Deacon continues. Social media, however, has made that impossible, because on social media we're perpetually bombarded by opinions different from our own and links to articles that contradict or even ridicule our view of the world. The experience is both confusing and upsetting. Until now, we simply had no idea that other people were so stupid, rude, and intolerant. Why can't they just be intelligent, pleasant, and generous like us? In short, we were a lot better off when we didn't know what other people thought all the time. And by the same token, we were a lot better off when people didn't know what we thought all the time. Either. Because this is the second big problem with social media. The opinions we express on it can be held against us, not just now, but for the rest of our lives. As reported in the Telegraph this week, children are now being warned that their future careers could be jeopardized by their old tweets and online comments. A tweet considered offensive can be recorded by the police as a non-crime hate incident, which will show up when prospective employers carry out a background check. It could easily put those employers off. Even if the police don't get involved, a childhood tweet can still cost you your job. Take the recent example of Alexi McAmmon. Last month, she lost her new job as editor of Teen Vogue after it was discovered that 10 years earlier, as a teenager, she posted a tweet grumbling about her class's stupid Asian teaching assistant, and another tweet saying she was Googling how not to wake up with swollen Asian eyes. But the story didn't quite end there. Among the call of those who called for McCammon's sacking was Kristen Davitt, Teen Vogue's social media manager. It emerged then that 11 years earlier, as a teenager, Davitt herself had posted tweets featuring a racial slur. Davitt, thankfully for her, remains in her job. How alarming, though, to think that you could be fired for a view that you held as a teenager. Indeed, fired for a view that you may never really have held at all. Rather than the public proclamation of some deep-seated belief, it may have simply been an immature expression of annoyance, an unthinking use of slang, or even a joke intended to amuse a tiny band of friends who follow you online. Yet now, years or even decades later, it's cost you your job, your prospects, your ability to pay your rent. You're being punished as an adult for your sins as a child, sins that at the time you committed them may not even have been considered sins at all. But these days, the past is invariably judged by the standards of the present. Remember Brett Kavanaugh's high school yearbook? Which means that on social media, you not only have to avoid offending people who might read your words now, you also have to avoid offending people who might read your words 10 or 20 years from now, which isn't easy, because you have no idea which might cause offense in 10 or 20 years. Eating meat, driving a car, enjoying Mrs. Brown's boys, your guess is as good as mine. All I can say is I'm glad we didn't have social media when I was a teenager, writes Deacon. Goodness knows how many of today's ethical certainties I would have violated 25 years in advance. Luckily, my son is too young to even know what social media is, but when he finds out, I'm going to ban him from using it for his own good. No doubt he'll be angry and consider it cruel, unfair, but I'm sure he'll come around to my point of view in a decade or three. The risk simply isn't worth it. Forget buying your children books and taking them to museums and hiring them a private tutor. If you want to boost their career prospects, the best thing you can do is rip their phone from their hand and smash it to bits. Michael Deacon in the Telegraph. That is 100% on target. I am so glad. I had many opinions when I was young, but nobody cared. When I worked in the White House, 85 to 86, I was the junior lawyer. I mean, I was lowest man on the totem pole and woman on the totem pole. There were a very, very diverse group of very smart people. Sherry Cooksey, David Waller, Michael Luttig, the Chief Justice of the United States, Fred Fielding. Dick Hauser was on that staff. Dick has a 3 handicap. We didn't see him much, but he was on the staff. He was around. His golf club was often on his desk, so I know he was there. But then I was the junior person in charge of defending the seal of the presidency of the United States, and I was damn good at it. If some limo company used that seal, I was all over them like flies on a screen door. I stopped it dead in its track. You had to figure out how the 25th Amendment worked. You asked the Chief Justice, the future Chief Justice. We had a little machine there that could look into the future, and they'd ask him. But if they needed the seal of the president, I was all over it. But I cannot imagine having had social media when I was 20. Nobody cared what you thought. They gave you assignments to do. And when I was at DOJ, 2 Attorney General, nobody cared what I thought. They just gave me tasks. Look this up, look that up. Review these warrants for FISA application. Even when I was the general counsel, nobody cared. At OPM, even when I ran OPM as the acting director after everybody quit towards the end of the Reagan years, I was the big boss. Nobody in the government cares what the head of OPM thinks. My goodness, let's be real. I'm glad I wasn't tweeting on the morning that I had to go in the middle of a snowstorm and shut down the government. Goodness knows what I would have tweeted about Metro then and what it would have done to my career. Terrible, terrible, terrible. All right, look, I want to continue for you on Peter Thiel yesterday. After Peter Thiel teed off on Bitcoin, let me play that for you again. Cut number 17, Peter Thiel at the Nixon seminar, which you can look at, nixonseminar.com on Tuesday night, cut 17.
From China's point of view, they want to get, they don't like the U.S. having this reserve currency because it gives us, a lot of leverage over, Iranian oil supply chains and all sorts of things like that. They don't want the renminbi to become a reserve currency, because then you have to open your capital account and you have to do all sorts of things that they really don't want to do. I think the euro, you could think of as, was in part a Chinese weapon against the dollar. It didn't, the last decade it hasn't quite worked out that way, but that was, China would have liked to see two reserve currencies like the euro. And, even though I'm sort of a pro-crypto, pro-Bitcoin maximalist person, I do wonder whether at this point Bitcoin is also should also be thought in part as a Chinese financial weapon against the U.S., where it threatens fiat money, but it especially threatens the U.S. dollar, and China wants to do things to weaken it. So it's sort of China is long Bitcoin, and perhaps from a geopolitical perspective, the U.S. should be a little bit be asking some tougher questions about exactly how that works. But some internal stablecoin.
Secretary Pompeo added this. Mike Pompeo was also at the Nixon seminar on Tuesday night, cut 18.
If I understand what they're doing is they're digitizing their currency. So separate from Bitcoin, it's still fiat currency, right? That is still Chinese money that they are now digitizing. It has huge impacts for their surveillance capacity. They would pitch it as anti-fraud. You can prevent fraud from taking place. I suppose that's true. This is something I think they believe will reduce the costs of cross-border transactions as well for the Chinese. Your point about not wanting to be a reserve currency, I think, is right. I think they'd like it to be among a mix. They want to make sure that when Secretary Pompeo issues the sanctions against the Iranian leadership, that there is a way to purchase Iranian oil that we don't have the capacity to either seize, understand, or impact. And so I do think these digital currencies, separate from Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, are something you'll see more countries go to. The United States has a project where we're working on it too, but we will be slow off the gate. It has lots of implications for us here at home, and my guess is that we will not be the leader in this forefront, where an authoritarian regime like China sees nearly all upside from having the capacity to issue currency or take away currency from people who act in ways that are inconsistent with Xi Jinping thought.
I must tell you, it was a fascinating 90 minutes, and you can watch clips of it. Nixonseminar.com. It's co-chaired by Mike Pompeo and Robert O'Brien. Dr. Henry Kissinger is our honorary chair. And there are members. There are 15 members of the seminar. And we're not taking applications. Please don't. Lots of people sent me emails. I want to join the seminar. It's full. We've done it. Jonathan Burks, Lan He Chen, Christopher Cox, Dr. Monica Crowley, Mike Gallagher, Congressman Extraordinaire, Alex Gray, Mary Kissel, John Noonan, Morgan Ortegas, Matt Pottinger, Kimberly Reed, Dr. Nadia Shadlow, Congressman Michael Waltz, Christian Whitten, Alex Wong. So we got basically the 15 smartest people on national security under the age of 50, plus Pompeo and O'Brien and Dr. Kissinger, and we bring in people like Thiel, and we do it once a month, and then people can watch it. You have to join the Nixon Foundation to be able to watch it, but we also post every article that everybody in that seminar writes. So if you want to be smart on what's going on in the world, go to nixonseminar.com and hit the articles in the seminar. Watch this thing with Thiel. It's amazing. Now, relieffactor.com. 6 miles on Monday. Not a good idea. I did the hills. And it wasn't a good idea because on Tuesday, I did this extraordinary number of events. And on Wednesday, I did another extraordinary number of events. And so on Thursday, I'm a little fragged out here. Luckily, I have my Relief Factor. It's like Popeye and spinach. You know? That's going to date me. But if Popeye would take his spinach, he was good for the day and the muscles would get big. Well, Icarian, curcumin, resveratrol, and omega won't make the muscles get big, but they will support the temporary relief of the minor aches and pains. And you will love it. Tens of thousands of people take it every day. So go get your relieffactor.com. Then come right back. Dr. Michael Oren, former Israeli Deputy Minister for Diplomacy and Israeli Ambassador to the United States, joins us to explain the unexplainable. Israeli politics. Can't be done. It's the Rubik's Cube of the international order. Stay tuned.
Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
This is a teacher-student dialogue of a Zoom class in Virginia. Listen carefully. Play tape.
Tell me what this seems to be a picture of.
It's just two people chilling.
Right, just two people. There's nothing more to this picture?
Nah, not really. Just two people chilling.
I don't believe that you believe that. I don't believe that you look at this as just two people. I don't think
Truly
you
is
can look
just
at
two
this as
people,
just
though,
two
is it not?
Yeah, but I think you're being intentionally coy about what this is a picture of.
What would I be being coy about? It's two people standing back to back in a picture.
Yeah, and that's all you see is two people.
I'm confused on what you would like me to speak on in that
I don't
sense.
think you are.
Well, I'm confused. Are you trying to get me to say that there are two different races in this picture?
Yes,
is that
I
what
am
you
asking
want
you
me
to
to
say
say? Well, at the end of the day, wouldn't that just be feeding into the problem of looking at race instead of just acknowledging them as two normal people?
No, it's not, because you can't look at people and not acknowledge that there are racial differences, right?
But if we're going for, let's say if we're looking for equality within all this, then why would we need to point out things such as that?
Because those differences are real things.
Those differences are real things, says the eugenicist teaching your children. Margaret Sanger trained this public school teacher, this white school teacher, very well.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
A few weeks ago, we had on the man who's going to be the next mayor of New York, Curtis Sliwa. Well, I thought, you know what? We've got some friends across the pond. Why don't we see if we can find out who's going to be the next mayor of London? We figured out who it is. I'm not kidding. His name is Lawrence Fox. Lawrence, welcome to the program.
Hi, Eric. How are you doing?
I'm good. You're hoarse from your first stump speech, aren't you?
I am a bit. I was quite nervous doing my first stump speech, I have to say.
People don't know this. Listen, I have to frame this, and you can feel free to interrupt me. And I'm not kidding, but I want people to understand that you're initially in your life, you're an actor. You're principally known as an actor. So people want to know, why did Lawrence Fox, the actor from the acting family, suddenly decide to go into politics and to say, yes, I would like to run to be the mayor of London? I mean, again, remember that most of the audience is American. They cannot fathom what's going on in London. So give us an idea for those of us who are not following the horrors of what your current mayor is doing.
Yeah, we'll get on to my current mayor. He's dreadful. I think the reason why I'm not acting now is because about a year and a couple of months ago, I went on a TV show in England called Question Time. I went on that show and I got
Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. I'm standing by for Michael Oren, waiting to see if we can find... Oh, he's there. Dr. Oren, good morning. How are you?
I'm here.
I'm
good.
I just described Israeli politics as a Rubik's Cube that no one can solve, so the answer is to hold another election. And I've read everything I can. I have no idea what's going on. You have the floor.
Thank you. That's like, there's an old joke about Lyndon Johnson's speechwriter. He used to put on little cue cards. And Johnson got up there one day and says, I'm going to solve the war. I'm going to win the war on poverty. I'm going to win the war on drugs. And he gets to the last card, and his speechwriter writes, okay, Lyndon, now you're on your own. Okay. Same thing. Yep. Okay, I'm on. Listen, as long as Benjamin Netanyahu is in politics, this is going to be the result. Period. If he were to leave politics, you'd have a situation of like a cue ball hitting all the other balls and they go into different pockets. But as long as he's there, then there's not going to be any break. And it's always going to be an anti-Bibi camp, which is going to be divided. They can't get together because there's leftists and rightists and ups and downs. And there's a pro-Bibi camp, which is far more united. Now, some of the ultra-Orthodox parties have indicated that to go to a fifth round, they will no longer be in Netanyahu's pocket. That's what they say. But I don't know whether there'll even be voter turnout for the next election, because voter turnout went down precipitously last time. People are just fed up, and it's causing a huge crisis of credibility in our political system. Now, having said all that, Israel's probably the world's highest functioning anarchy.
Yes, absolutely.
Country works great.
Country, and don't screw around with it, Iran, because all of a sudden all these quarreling people will blow you up. And so just take that to the bank. I am curious, though. There is this one path to a government which involves Naftali Bennett rejoining Likud and sitting as a minority government with the support of, what is it, Ram, an Islamist party, not joining the government but supporting it. Now that was fairly common in British politics in the 19th century, when the Irish votes would support whichever government was in, and when they withdrew them, the government would fall. How realistic is that?
Not terribly, because there are people in Bennett's party, there are people in the even more right-wing sort of settler party of Bezalel Smotrich, who said that they will not sit in the government, even if it's implicitly supported by Ram. They will not lean on that staff. And frankly, they have a very strong case. It's interesting. A couple of days ago, a Palestinian terrorist was released from the jail. He had killed an Israeli soldier 35 years ago, an Israeli Arab, by the way, not from the West Bank. And his sentence was commuted, and he went home to his village and received a hero's welcome. Hero's welcome. People danced in the street, gave out sweets, and there were members of Knesset from this Ram party who hugged this guy. So
that does present a problem. I see that.
What
about defectors from SARS? I mean, can they offer them? You can have the transportation ministry. You can be the chancellor of the exchequer, which I know you don't have, but there's got to be something like it. Are there three people to be bribed over?
And there have been cases. Back in 1993, the Oslo peace accords with the PLO was famously won by one vote, and the person who gave that vote had been in opposition, and he got an SUV. The famous SUV for PLO. And so there have been precedents. I think today, in the age of transparency and social media, it's much more difficult to defect. People know about it in advance. The obloquy, the fallout from it is far, far greater. So far there have been no defectors. There's been rumors of what Netanyahu has been offering to defectors, anything, the sky and the earth and everything in between. Right now, I've been saying on this program for weeks, right? That it's either going to be Bibi or fifth round. And I'm sticking with that.
Well, that's the Rubik's Cube. And so we go back to the Rubik's Cube. That means Netanyahu remains prime minister in the interim, right? Gantz remains defense minister in the interim, right? And then when do we have the next round? Is it going to be July 4th election? I mean, when's it going to be?
It's not. No, it's much further than that next way, because it goes, now they have, each party will have like 21 days to form a government. That gives us up to, it's 42 days plus another 14 days plus holidays. I mean, it's going to bring you well into the summer. Before you know it, you're at the Jewish holidays in September. It goes on and on. I think I've said on this program several times that Netanyahu is a lot of like some of the enemies we fight. Hamas and Hezbollah, who in order to win only have not to lose. Right?
And
by not losing, Bibi kind of wins, doesn't he?
Will the trial be over ever so that they'd have a clean break?
No, the trial is expected to go on for 3 years.
Oh, my gosh. This is really a broken record. And I'm just curious, in the next election, do people just stay home?
Yeah, and that's what's happening. People losing credibility. Now, there are two possible exits. One is that Netanyahu cuts a deal with the state controller's office, the state prosecutor's office. And, Ford and Nixon. And he's against that. Every DNA is against that, but he may go for it. The other one is that he opts to be president of the state of Israel. And there's a kind of a scuttlebutt here that says if he were to stand for president and the Knesset votes for the president, that the people who hate Bibi would vote for him just to get him out of politics.
I'm telling you, we'll find out next week in the longest running installment on this show, what's happening in Israel. Michael, thank you. Dr. Michael Oren on Twitter. Stay tuned, America.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Anger, all this energy, all this passion for a bill that they consider to be racist. Have they read it? Have they seen the Yale study that shows that despite the so-called voter suppression measures, hasn't affected the black vote at all? If anything, it might have encouraged blacks to vote even more, as if to say, oh, really? You're trying to suppress my vote? I'll show you. No evidence whatsoever that these alleged voter suppression measures are in fact suppressing the black vote. None. Moreover, as I've said, poll after poll after poll over the years has shown that blacks support photo voter ID almost to the same degree as whites do. But here's what they're doing. They're characterizing the issue, as they always do, as an attack against black people. That way, blacks remain eternally angry. The Democrats continue their image as the party of pro-social justice, and they characterize the Republican Party as a party that wants to attack black people. Explain, if the Republican Party is a party that wants to attack black people, why it is that this black man, Representative Byron Donalds of Florida, said this about the Georgia bill.
The Democrats are race baiting. They are wrong. Look, I've reviewed the Georgia
Must be an Uncle Tom.
law myself. What Georgia's doing is the absolute right thing. I know the president's running around trying to tell people that you can't give somebody a cup of water, but that's not what Georgia law says. What Georgia law says is that you can't give people something of value when they're in lines getting ready to vote, because, you know, we don't want to buy off votes in America. That's like a sound concept. That's what we should be doing.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Even when they're not on some cable channel shock jock platform, they don't care. One of the bravest, best Americans I know was my colleague, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. She's sitting there at the White House Correspondents Association annual dinner when somebody else who says she's a comedian, well, says this as she's standing next to her.
Every time Sarah steps up to the podium, I get excited because I'm not really sure what we're going to get. You know, a press briefing, a bunch of lies, or divided into softball teams. It's shirts and skins, and this time don't be such a little Jim Acosta. I actually really like Sarah. I think she's very resourceful. Like, she burns facts, and then she uses that ash to create a perfect smoky eye. Like, maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's lies. It's probably lies. And I'm never really sure what to call Sarah Huckabee Sanders. You know, is it Sarah Sanders? Is it Sarah Huckabee Sanders? Is it Cousin Huckabee? Is it Auntie Huckabee Sanders? Like, what's Uncle Tom but for white women who disappoint other white women?
Hilarious, Michelle Wolf. So when that party, when those people who voted for Joe Biden and for Hillary Clinton tell you they care about the illegal immigrants crossing our border, they're lying to you. They don't give a damn.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
You cease to amaze me is sometimes the stupidity that comes out of your mouth.
The expression is never cease to amaze me as you're calling me stupid. I'm just saying.
About the George Floyd trial.
Actually, it's the Derek Chauvin trial. George Floyd is dead.
YouTube last
so, as you call me stupid, just pointing out a few things.
year, they had white officers answering calls to white people. Two of them had knives, and in both instances, the officers took them down without any incident. Why don't you have your research staff research that sometimes before you go around flapping your gums about
Flapping my gums? Is that racist?
It seems like you just on one side of the fence all the time, the one that butters your bread, I guess. So you have a nice evening.
On one side of the fence all the time, the one that butters your bread. You have a nice evening. I will say one more time, sir. The police kill every year more unarmed whites than they kill unarmed blacks. Heather McDonald says that a black man is 18 and a half times more likely to kill a white cop than the other way around. Is that relevant to you? The number one cause of preventable death for young white men is accidents, car accidents, drownings, things like that. Number one cause of preventable death for young black men, homicide, almost always at the hands of another young black man. The percentage of blacks who are unarmed, killed by cops, represents roughly 1/3 of 1% of all the blacks who are killed in this country every year. Is that at all relevant?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
And they are not insurgents. And we are not being invaded, which, by the way, is a white supremacist idea, philosophy.
She doesn't know what philosophy means, and that's okay. She's not very bright. She has a very big, very substantial following, I should say. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is articulating why she's angry at the people that are angry, that the left seems completely uninterested in complaining that the Biden administration is actually doing everything on the border worse than the Trump administration. But why is it that it feels as if we are slow to move against Joe Biden? I remember against Barack Obama. It was organic. It was real. There was a response that was unscripted. Patriots across the country rose up and started Tea Party groups. Candidates ran for office. Rick Santelli's famous rant in 2009 or 2010. And I'm reminded by a phrase that substance does not matter as much as style in the eyes of most voters. You see, what we make fun of Joe Biden for is actually a winning quality to most voters. The fact that Joe Biden is kind of sleepy and slow, the fact that Joe Biden falls upstairs, which is a rather remarkable thing. It's exactly what the ruling class wants. You see, Joe Biden is like the grandparent that kind of falls asleep in front of the television at 7 o'clock.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Did you move to LA from New York?
I moved very
Morning, glory America. Bonjour, hi Canada. I'm Hugh Hewitt. In this morning's Wall Street Journal, columnist Dan Henninger just takes the wood to Major League Baseball. And boy, do they deserve it for screwing up, for making it a blue sport, aligning Major League Baseball with the Democratic Party. It's like Coke and Delta. Later today at HughHewitt.com, we'll have a petition up for you to sign that simply details what the Georgia law does and why customers are not going to buy Major League Baseball tickets in the same numbers. Fly Delta, fly United. And I wrote a column about this, and so a lot of people, I'm going to fly United, I'm going to fly Delta. No, you won't. You won't. If you're trolling people in the comment section of the Washington Post, you're not actually a consumer of any note. Already, millions of people have changed their consumption patterns concerning Major League Baseball, Delta, and Coca-Cola. And they're not going to get it back, especially baseball. People change their consumer patterns very rarely. You don't want to give them a chance to do so. So Dan Henninger writes, Sherman's burning of Atlanta wasn't enough punishment. To clean out any traces of racism 157 years later, General Rob Manfred of Major League Baseball decided the North had to sack Atlanta one more time. Still, it counts as progress that instead of the indiscriminate looting and burning of stores as happened last summer, General Manfred merely ordered the destruction of an estimated $100 million of commerce for Atlanta's post-pandemic businesses as he moved the All-Star game to the presumably less morally offensive, if overwhelmingly white, city of Denver. The CEOs of Coca-Cola and Delta Airlines headquartered in Atlanta chirped in their 2 cents of moral condescension. Frankly, Georgia, they don't give a damn about you. At issue, one is obliged to insert, is the voting procedure law passed by Georgia's Republican-controlled legislature and signed by Brian Kemp. It is not racist, as explained, Daniel Henninger notes, by 3 editorials in this newspaper. As with the routine battles over gerrymandering House districts, this dispute about election law is a political fight between the 2 major parties. But alongside Georgia, we have the simultaneous trial in Minneapolis of Derek Chauvin, accused of murdering George Floyd during an arrest on May 25. Since that happened, progressives repeatedly have deployed the race card against the opposition, notably over post-pandemic voting legislation. Their goal, again, is partisan and political, to enact H.R. 1, which would nationalize federal elections, effectively eliminating a traditional role for elected legislators and others in 50 states. Yes, politics is hardball, but today we are living through a flood tide of efforts to reduce politics to a permanent confessional on racism. He's right, he's right, he's right. And Major League Baseball stepped on the rake. And has Rob Manfred resigned yet from Augusta National Golf Course? Because otherwise, Hypocrite of the Year goes to him. Though Donald Trump is back in play, writes Henninger, he's right. Boycott baseball. Get it? He's right. Boycott baseball. And the rest of the progressives' new corporate cancel culture all-star team, including Patagonia, H&M, Uber, TripAdvisor, Levi Strauss, Blue Apron, Nordstrom, and SoFi. Why boycott them, asked Henninger? Because their leaders assume that most of their customers are compliant saps. Mr. Manfred knows he can get away with smearing half a southern state as racist because fans everywhere will again choke down the political and personal insult and trudge towards watch the home team play. So they win and you lose in the larger state's political game being played out. I actually don't think it's going to be that way. I think a bunch of people are going to know that, like I know, Kansas City lost to the Indians yesterday. I'm just not going to go see the Indians play or buy their merch. Those are tickets they will never get back. And the Indians are a small market revenue team. I mean, they need me to go to Cleveland and watch a game. They need me to up the split at the gate when they play away. They need me to buy Indians merch or Tribe merch or whatever their new team name is, merch. Not going to happen, wouldn't do it. And I don't have to fly Delta. Sometimes I do, and so I'll fly Delta when I have to. But I can fly Alaska. I'm going to fly Alaska this weekend. I can fly something besides United. I don't have to take Uber. Don't have to take Lyft. I can take the bus. I can drive. There are marginal decisions made at the edge of each of these companies' revenue stream. You don't see Amazon getting to the middle of this. No, 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 no. Second big scandal, and so go over to HughHewitt.com today and find that petition and please sign it. We were working on the language last night. And we want to lay out for you what the Georgia law actually does. It's not a racist law. It's a voting integrity law, and we need them everywhere. So you may have known that 60 Minutes went after Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, over the weekend. And they tried to take him out with a completely doctored press conference. Well, our friend DeSantis went out yesterday and had a press conference, and he just laid the wood to 60 Minutes. Cut number 8.
Expanded accordingly. But when you're talking about this ridiculous smear narrative, it's important to break down just how false, how thoroughly dishonest it is. because this is bad for our country to have big corporate media smearing for profit just because I'm in the other party than them and using their partisanship to craft narratives regardless of the facts. So the big lie, of course, which has been debunked by 100% of the people that have any type of knowledge on this, is that there was some type of conspiracy between Publix, which is our probably most respected company in the state, and me about some type of vaccine distribution. That's been debunked. That was wrong. And it's very telling. When I was asked at that press conference, I gave a very detailed answer, and that answer was edited out. Every single fact that I discussed was edited out. The fact that Publix wasn't even the first pharmacy to get it, CVS and Walgreens had it. The fact that we had it obviously in hospitals and these other places. The fact that Publix was selected because they were the first pharmacy to raise their hand, that was taken out. The fact that when I went down and met with Mayor Kerner, Palm Beach was the one that calculated 90% of their seniors live within a mile and a half of a Publix, and that they cut out 90%. Because they knew that that would hurt their narrative. So everything they left on the cutting room floor was designed to take away all the evidence against their narrative. It was malicious what they did. There's a video going out now, it's got millions of views, shows the 60 Minutes clip, and then it shows the actual answer. And I can tell you, even people that may be on the other side of the aisle from me, when they look at that, they uniformly understand that was a smear, that was editing to try to further a narrative and to try to hide the facts. And we offered them on camera last week for Jared to go on, for Mayor Kerner. Now they say they've talked to him in the past. Yeah, Jared's not going to sit down in an interview a month ago or 2 weeks ago to dismiss a fake story. He's got better things to do. But when it was clear that they were hell-bent on doing this, said, all right, Jared will go on air. Dave Kerner will go on air. No, we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that because obviously that would have undercut their narrative. So the whole thing is a big lie. We know it was a big lie. CBS certainly knew it was a big lie. But that was their goal, was just simply to try to smear Florida, smear me, smear whoever they could in the process to try to manufacture it. I mean, they're based in New York. How many critical stories are they doing about the governor of New York? I've seen puff pieces. I haven't seen any critical looks at all their problems. But I want to focus on something that is probably somewhat overlooked. So the smear is a conspiracy charge, which is obviously BS. But the way they say is exclusive rights to distribute the vaccine in Palm Beach. So this was stated as a fact. That is absolutely false. The reporter knew it was false, but certainly they knew it was false by the time it went on air because I told them it was false and all they had to do was check the facts.
I love Ron DeSantis doing this. Now, I've got lots of friends in the center, lots of friends who work in media who do their best to try and be fair. Lots and lots of them. I've been at NBC for 5 years. I worked with CNN before that. I know lots of people try to be fair. But half the country believes media is completely 100% unsalvageable and biased. And when CBS comes along and is exposed this way, they break the brand of everybody on all the networks. It's not just CBS and 60 Minutes that's on fire. It's a replay of Rathergate. It's an absolute replay of Rathergate. And CBS keeps putting out statements explaining nothing. They're playing whack-a-mole. They keep answering questions that nobody's asked, when what they have to do is apologize and fire the producer. It's Rathergate 2.0, and they won't do it. And as a result, you cannot trust mainstream media on a hit job on a Republican. You just cannot trust them. Stay tuned, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show brought to you by Sierra Pacific Mortgage. For more info, call 888-888-1172.
Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Did you move to LA from New York?
I moved very shortly out thereafter because while I couldn't write for Letterman, I was perfect for Johnny Carson. And so I asked my now friend, David Letterman, would he please send a package out to his connections? He's already been guest hosting that show for years and whatnot.
So what happened? The Tonight Show said, nah, we're not interested.
Yeah, Johnny was going through a miserable divorce. And by the way, I remember the very first joke because he did use some of the material I sent out. The very first joke. Now, you wouldn't be able to do this joke today because it's body shaming. And you have to remember the reference is, I guess now 35, maybe even, gosh.
Is this a Toady Fields joke or a Mama Cass Elliott joke?
Sort of. All right. Remember Karnak the Magnificent? The answer is hip, hip, hooray. The question, describe Liz Taylor putting on her jeans.
That is a great joke. What do you mean you can't do a joke like that today? That is a great joke. You just did it on this program. I love it. Hip, hip. So has that joke ever appeared anywhere?
Yes, every time I'm on the air.
Every time you're on the air. Hip, hip, hooray. Well, when you write a joke like that, that's like I think Dick Cavett's first major joke was there's a new restaurant and it's Chinese German. The only problem is an hour after you eat there, you're hungry for power.
That's a great joke. Yep.
It's a stupid joke, but I mean, anyway. Okay, so hip hip hooray.
Now, can I tell a slightly off-color joke?
If you don't, we'll be offended.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Coca-Cola, cowards, read the damn bill. It doesn't suppress anybody unless you're of the mindset, if you're black, you're too dumb to figure out how to get ID to vote. That's suppression because we know how black people are. We know how brown people are. They're not intelligent enough to get an ID put together. They can't go down to the DMV or they can't figure out a way to get just a state ID. They can't. We can't expect our poor black friends to do that. That's the left. That's the mindset. That's the thinking of Democrats. Now, Ed Bastian's company, Delta, won't be so forgiving for somebody who's too ignorant to get an ID and let them get on their plane. Because you can't fly Delta without a photo ID, a legitimate ID. But don't you dare expect a black or brown Georgian to be smart enough to figure out how to produce an ID when they vote. That's suppression. No, that's not suppression. That's idiocy. That is stupidity at the highest level, and everybody knows it. So good for the Georgia State Legislature for pushing back and telling Delta to go stick it in your ear. They ought to say the same thing. They don't do the same thing to Coca-Cola, to Home Depot, to any of these companies who are playing this pitiful game of lying about the Georgia election integrity law. They are lies.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
Right now, if it hasn't happened, it will happen. They will simply declare classics as an example of white supremacy.
Absolutely. I think that is where we're headed. And it's a shame because classics really taught me how to analytically think and critically.
Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Expect the sound of a boom from Wall Street today. I'm not a prophet nor the son of a prophet. I don't know what markets are going to do. Markets don't close to 4 p.m. I'm a morning show. But last night after the markets closed, Jamie Dimon, who's probably the most respected name on Wall Street, his letter began to circulate, his annual letter to shareholders of J.P. Morgan Chase. And he writes this, or this is the Financial Times summary of it. A huge rise in U.S. government spending will boost the world's largest economy over at least the next 2 years, according to Chief Executive J.P. Morgan Chase. Jamie Dimon offered the upbeat outlook in his annual letter to shareholders, in which he asserted that the high savings rate, stimulus programs, and a potential infrastructure package and, quote, euphoria around the end of the pandemic were likely to jumpstart the U.S. economy. Quote, it's possible that we will have a Goldilocks moment. Fast growth, inflation that moves up gently but not too much, interest rates that rise but not too much, Wall Street's leading banker said, adding that sustained spending could fuel a year-long hot streak. Both consumers and companies appear to be in great financial health as the country starts to emerge from the health crisis, said Dimon, who heads the largest U.S. bank, if you judge them by asset. Even before Joe Biden's $1.9 stimulus package was passed last month, J.P. Morgan estimated that retail customers had roughly $2 trillion in excess savings. Large companies, meanwhile, are carrying a sizable $3 trillion cash cushion on their balance sheets. Additionally, expansionary action taken by monetary authorities around the world should have a, quote, compounding global effect. If such a boom emerges, high-flying valuations in equity markets could be justified. 34,000-word missive from Dimon, meaning boom, boom, boom. Now, two things have resulted from that. Number one, people are pouring money into the stock market, and they are borrowing money to go in. And I don't like this trend. This is not a good idea. But from the Wall Street Journal, investors, big and small, are driving stock gains with borrowed money. This past year's rally has been boosted by Robinhood day traders and big investment firms. So they own $15,000 and they borrow on margin on their $15,000 worth of stock and they buy more. That's great. So the music stops. Now, Jamie Dimon says the music's not going to stop. Okay, someday it's going to stop. And you don't want to have a margin call. So please, please, please be conservative. By all means, invest in the stock market. I wouldn't own cash right now. Not a chance. No way. And second, I'd be fully invested. You got to own gold or stocks or, of course, real estate, which brings me to andrewandtodd.com. Great sponsors of the show. They are with Sierra Pacific, 888-888-1172, but go to their website, andrewandtodd.com. The housing market is on fire everywhere across the United States, but the realtor this morning gave the top 10 markets. Unbelievably, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho is the hottest real estate market in America, followed by Santa Maria, California, East Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. That's in the Poconos. And prices there have gone up 43%. Billings, Montana. Apparently some people like snow. Boulder, Colorado. Some people like liberals and latte. Austin, Texas. People like liberals and latte. And country music and Matthew McConaughey. Tupelo, Mississippi. Pittsfield, Massachusetts. I've been to Pittsfield. It's not a bad place. Bend, Oregon. I mean, there's all these liberal cities. And not Sioux City, Iowa. That's not liberal. But those are the top 10 markets. It's actually everywhere. So if you want to buy a house, do it now. Do it with andrewandtodd.com because it's just going to go up. All that money that Jamie Dimon talks about, that's got to go somewhere. It's going to go into stocks. It's going to go into gold. And it's going to go into buying a house. So if you're going to buy a house, get pre-qualified, andrewandtodd.com, 888-888-1172. A boom that's going to last a year and a half, and then right before the 2022 election, inflation will arrive and the recession will start, and the Democrats will be thrown out, and by the time Joe Biden doesn't run for re-election in 2024, we'll be in a recession. Perfect. I'll be right back, America. Stay tuned.
Don't forget to sign up for the Hughiverse. All of Hugh's broadcasts on demand, the after show, which in my opinion is worth the price all by itself, Dwayne FM, and all sorts of bonus content. www.hughiverse.com.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
I had a kind of epiphany today. Maybe I'm a big softy deep down. If you believe that, I got a bridge to sell you. But sometimes, especially, let me get personal. Not when I get attacked, but even then, when it's really vituperative, when it's really despicable, I have a certain feeling. But when they attack my family and when they've attacked my children, there's usually a point in the year where I just find myself asking a certain question, a very human question. Why do they do that? Why would you do that to a fellow human being? And it puzzles me because I could never do that. I can be harsh. I can be very robust in what I say. Some would say aggressive. But it's not because I detest and wish to destroy human beings. I'm a rational human, and I can separate the person from the ideology, the sin from the sinner. I don't wish to destroy my fellow man. If you threaten my family, I will kill you. That is what every father and husband should be prepared to do. You try to use lethal force against somebody I love, and I will die to save them.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
This is a teacher-student dialogue of a Zoom class in Virginia. Listen carefully. Play tape.
Tell me what this seems to be a picture of.
It's just two people chilling.
Right, just two people. That's nothing more to that picture?
Nah, not really. Just two people chilling.
I don't believe that you believe that. I don't believe that you look at this as just two people. I don't think
Truly
you
is just two people, though, is it not?
Yeah, but I think you're being intentionally coy about what this is a picture of.
What would I be being coy about? It's two people standing back to back in a picture.
Yeah, and that's all you see is two people.
I'm confused on what you would like me to speak on in that
I don't
sense.
think you are.
Well, I'm confused. Are you trying to get me to say that there are two different races in this picture?
Yes,
is that
I am
what
asking
you want
you
me
to
to
say
say? Well, at the end of the day, wouldn't that just be feeding into the problem of looking at race instead of just acknowledging them as two normal people?
No, it's not, because you can't look at people and not acknowledge that there are racial differences, right?
But if we're going for, let's say if we're looking for equality within all this, then why would we need to point out things such as that?
Because those differences are real things.
Those differences are real things, says the eugenicist teaching your children. Margaret Sanger trained this public school teacher, this white school teacher, very well.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
A few weeks ago, we had on the man who's going to be the next mayor of New York, Curtis Sliwa. Well, I thought, you know what? We've got some friends across the pond. Why don't we see if we can find out who's going to be the next mayor of London? We figured out who it is. I'm not kidding. His name is Lawrence Fox. Lawrence, welcome to the program.
Hi, Eric. How are you doing?
I'm good. You're hoarse from your first stump speech, aren't you?
I am a bit. I was quite nervous doing my first stump speech, I have to say.
People don't know this. Listen, I have to frame this, and you can feel free to interrupt me. And I'm not kidding, but I want people to understand that you're initially in your life, you're an actor. You're principally known as an actor. So people want to know, why did Lawrence Fox, the actor from the acting family, suddenly decide to go into politics and to say, yes, I would like to run to be the mayor of London? I mean, again, remember that most of the audience is American. They cannot fathom what's going on in London. So give us an idea for those of us who are not following the horrors of what your current mayor is doing.
Yeah, we'll get on to my current mayor. He's dreadful. I think the reason why I'm not acting now is because about a year and a couple of months ago, I went on a TV show in England called Question Time. I went on that show and I got into an argument with someone who said that I wasn't allowed a view because of my white privilege. And I said, let's not be racist to each other. That went down pretty bad.
Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. Good morning to you. I'm joined for the first time, of which I hope are many occasions, by Mayor Quinton of Kansas City, Missouri. He is probably the toughest Democrat, if he runs for Senate next year, that Republicans will have to beat. He's also a very good mayor of Kansas City. Good morning, Mayor. How are you?
Good morning, and it's an honor to be back with you.
Now, Mayor, we're not going to agree on a lot of things, but I think I want to begin on an area of common ground where you and I are bound to agree. Doesn't that make sense? We're bound to agree on one thing.
I imagine that would be the case. I'm ready for it.
Here it is. Let's play the audio. Any fair-minded football fan, even a Kansas City fan, knows that Rashard Higgins was speared by safety Daniel Sorensen, and that turned that game around. And any self-respecting NFL fan would say the Browns should have been awarded that game, and the Chiefs' AFC title is simply illegitimate.
Oh my. Well, I think, first of all, we've seen a Chiefs dynasty budding, only stopped by that New England relocation down to Tampa this year. But I am one who hopes for the best for the Browns. It was so exciting to see you all get back to the playoffs, try to make a run. But no, Kansas City deserved it. Me, every gambler in America, everybody in this part of the Midwest knew the right team came out on top.
Now, Daniel Sorensen speared him. You're a man of justice. I read your website. You believe in justice. He speared him, and that fumble through the end zone rule is the worst rule in the NFL. But I digress. Do you also know that the Indians beat the Royals 4-2 yesterday on two Jose Ramirez home runs?
I did know that. It has been an otherwise great start to the Kansas City Royals, but Indians, a solid franchise that, we have great respect for. We'll be seeing them, of course, a lot this summer. So look forward to evening things up a bit.
Oh, Mayor, you are a diplomat. All right, so I came trash talking to you about my Browns and my Indians, and you're just being nice. Let's get to the real stuff. Are you going to run for Senate in Missouri?
I have not made that decision yet. We continue to have a lot of work to do in Kansas City. As you may or may not know, I was somewhat involved in the St. Louis mayor's race and excited about that to see Tashara Jones, the first black woman elected as a mayor of St. Louis. I think that, Missouri and Democrats in Missouri have a good chance to make a difference. It starts in the cities, it expands to suburbs, and I hope someone carries that message in 2022. I'm evaluating if I'll be the right one for that, but certainly I think I have some things that suggest I could be.
Well, yeah, I actually read the internals from the Republican side, and they're worried about you. And so when they're worried about you, I want to cover you. And I really would actually talk policy with you this morning because I have been working on a story about Los Angeles homelessness. And it's actually epidemic out in California now, 70,000 homeless people in LA. How many homeless people does Kansas City have, and what are you doing about it? Genuinely interested. Most intractable problem in America today is homelessness and the unhoused. What's going on in Kansas City, Missouri?
Well, you're absolutely right that it is a problem that is one that's growing, I think, all around America and every large city. In Kansas City right now, it's estimated we have about 1,800 to 2,000 homeless persons. If you break down percentages, Los Angeles is still, even per capita, in a tougher place than we are. And We have always had encampments. The estimate is there are about 170. I've actually been meeting with folks who are representatives of the homeless community and indeed are experiencing homelessness themselves every day this week. And this was not just set up for this interview.
I didn't know that.
We are planning to do a few different things. One, are creating more transitional opportunities at hotels for between 30 and 90 days to get people back on their feet. We're giving them COVID vaccines, et cetera. But something I think that's more important, and for all of you who talk about, teach a man to fish rather than giving him one, we're looking at converting some of our vacant houses, of which we have more than we would like, and having them fixed up, working with local unions and others, making them opportunities for those who are homeless right now to get in there, to live, to continue to have all the support services, mental health services, et cetera, that you need, and then hopefully to address the problem long term, rather than moving from one camp to another, putting people under a bridge, as I think they've done in another California jurisdiction. We're saying, how can we actually use some of this federal money that all of us as cities are getting right now to try to solve a long-term problem? And I think that's the way that we'll make this change. I think Kansas City is going to be unique in having a solution for it.
Well, there are 70,000 unhoused people in L.A., and L.A. is getting a couple of $1 billion. I don't know what Eric Garcetti's going to do with it, but having gone to the hearing on Skid Row, having followed it closely with Judge David Carter, he's about to take the city into receivership, I think, and take over because it's such a disaster here. And, my simple suggestion is buy houses and move people into them. It sounds like, I don't know how much money you're getting in the stimulus. Do you yet know, Mayor Q?
We're getting $200 million, which, a lot of cities are getting a lot more, but that means a lot to us.
Now, $200 million would go a long way to buying housing stock or restoring housing stock. But then it's my experience, there are three kinds of homeless. People have mental illness, people have addiction, and people have economic problems. That's in the reverse order of difficulty to deal with. The people who have economic problems are actually kind of easy to deal with if you can find them and give them rapid rehousing. What are you going to do about the mental health and the addicted, though?
I think both of those need a sustained set of touches. So I have spent a lot of time with some of our law enforcement in Kansas City. And I think what you see, and I'll talk to them, they say, I've interacted with that guy 40 different times. He's been arrested this number of times. But usually it's a relationship where either you go to jail or the emergency room because you got in a fight. You may get meds for a second. There's not that follow-up counseling. There's not that follow-up social work service. And so for us, it would be really making sure that folks are enrolled in programs, that there are some measures to ensure compliance. In our municipal court, that relates to some punitive measures. But you've seen exceptional ways that we've dealt with these things. For example, we have a veterans tiny home village in Kansas City, started by a group of our vets. Now former Senate candidate Jason Kander works with it, and they have made amazing changes for some of our folks who are dealing with long-term issues. We have a drug abuse treatment court, veterans treatment courts, investing more in those. And these have started around the country. They have amazing changes and differences from people, and I've talked to them who said, I never thought I would get off of, let's say it's meth, and they never thought that they'd be in a position to be a homeowner, to have a steady job. I mean, it's going to take that level of commitment. But importantly, and this is a place where I agree with a lot of conservatives, it is not just throwing money to the first thing. That there is a critique I had of perhaps how this city did things often. We would get millions of dollars from HUD every year, we still do, and then we just pass it all out, and we say, all right, we're done. And then some of our nonprofit partners say, all right, well, we passed ours out, so we're all done. That is useless and getting you nowhere. You need to actually measure how these programs are going. You need to change course if they're not. And, for example, the buying houses sort of thing may be a heck of a lot more effective than, just spending $3 million to help pay for administrative salaries at X or Y nonprofit, because we always have done it that way.
Mayor, that brings me to one of my favorite suggestions to municipal authorities is when the government shows up with $200 million for Kansas City, Missouri, don't spend it, bank it, and then use the interest for a housing trust. That would be $8 to $10 million a year that would be ongoing, as opposed to a one-time shot in the arm. Have you considered that? Is that anything that you would ever put down? And let's talk about putting the money into investments and making it a housing trust.
To the extent legally permitted, we absolutely would consider that. And in fact, that is something that as we consider ideas, one that comes onto the list. How do you actually fund a sustainable corpus of money that can actually support our goals long term, rather than just spending up all of the taxpayer dollars, whether they be federal, state, or local, because they are all still taxpayer dollars, as soon as possible. And there is one thing that I see as a concern right now, which is that I think too many of us in local government and state governments are saying, oh, my God, we have money. What are we going to put it into, right? And you even I'm getting a lot more requests from people saying, we need all this now, instead of saying, okay, you know what, we all got to bail out, all of us actually, red states, blue states, from the federal government, from the federal taxpayer. How do we make sure that we're in a position where hopefully you never have a crisis like this, but the next economic downturn, we're able to weather it because we said, all right, we've addressed this housing issue up front. We've addressed some of our mental health issues up front. That's the difference I think we can make in Kansas City. And that's what, I had somebody, another mayor of a Missouri town, we were actually talking about the Senate race, among other things, and he said they're Democrats, they're Republicans, and they're mayors. I see my goal as a mayor
That's
of
good.
having long-term solutions, because you got to solve the things, right? You don't have a chance to write these checks or have some of these battles that other people do, and I think that's what we're going to be planning in Kansas City.
You're sounding very reasonable, except on the Chiefs, Mayor. That's dangerous for Republicans. I want to know, Eric Schmitt's coming on. I've talked to Eric Greitens. I've talked to one of the other Republicans running out there. There are like 1,000 of them running for Senate. Who do you want to run against? You probably want to run against Eric Greitens, don't you?
Well, I think everybody's our viewpoints are going to be different across the board. I've met most of them, I think. I think Governor Greitens, somebody who resigned in disgrace not that long ago, that should likely disqualify you from further office, but I am unlikely to be a Republican primary voter, so I imagine I don't care what the heck I'll say. But, I think the others have in some ways lost their way. I have respect for the Attorney General, Eric Schmitt, but I disagree with the lawsuits against China that have gotten dismissed from court, lawsuits relating to the election, which also got dismissed from court, and many see as linked to the January 6th incidents in Washington. I mean, look, there is a question of, are we going to do serious governance or not? To show that I'm actually not just a partisan. Roy Blunt, our outgoing senior senator, has always been largely about just responsible government. How are you doing substantive political acts every day? And instead of the sort of thing that is, let's just try to get headlines everywhere. I think you can get on the Hugh Hewitt show and actually be good at governance, not just somebody who's, flame throwing all the time. And I think Missourians are going to respect and appreciate that. That's been in our tradition for generations.
So last question, Mayor Q. What is your timeline? When do you have to decide if you're going to make a run for the Senate seat? Because I really do think Republicans are overlooking a big vulnerability in the Show Me State if you get in this race. I just want to know when we have to start watching it closely.
Well, we've addressed, I think, a few important budget concerns. Kansas City passed one a few weeks ago. I do want to make sure we figure out our stimulus planning. That'll be over the next several weeks. I would imagine that, like a lot of other people, the summer months give a little bit of time to think about it. Maybe I'll get around Missouri a bit more. I do vacation in the Ozarks, among other places. And so I'll continue calling folks, talking to them, and listening to what's going on. My primary job is looking out for my family. The next is looking out for my city. But, I think we need strong voices in the Capitol who are looking out for Missourians, not just either their book deals or what's going on with some other things politically. So it'll be over the next several months, and I hope I'd have the chance to come back and talk to you more about it along the way.
Oh, often, especially during the season, especially when we take on the Chiefs again and beat them. And great to make your acquaintance, Mayor Q. I wish more Democrats would come on and chat like this, because it's in the best interest of everyone. Have a great day, but don't expect the Royals to do other than what they did yesterday, lose to the Indians today. Good to talk to you, Mayor.
Hey, good luck. Stay well.
I like Democrats when they come on and talk to me. But honestly, that was the cheapest hit ever in that Chiefs game. And he knows it, and I know it, and every football fan in America knows it. ReliefFactor.com is something you ought to know about as well. I took it in the first hour. I ask you every hour to remember, don't leave home without it. You're going to go get in a car and take a long commute somewhere. I want you to get your ReliefFactor.com. Yesterday I drove back and forth about 3 hours in the car. That is the killer for me. The lower back all the way down through to the knee. And it's because of, it's just seat position, stop and go. I think the pandemic is over given the amount of traffic in Southern California yesterday. It was nuts. So I'm going back to the Beltway where I can walk everywhere. But luckily, ReliefFactor.com is there. I'm going to talk with Jim Talent next about Mayor Q. He's probably in the bag for the Chiefs, too. Stay tuned.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you in part by Birch Gold Group.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
It is a force of pure destruction. If it's good, the left destroys it. America was largely good. America is composed of 330 million flawed human beings. It is amazing that it got as good as it did. The amazing thing is not the bad that exists, which is universal. The amazing thing is the good that exists, which is unique or extremely rare. You don't judge people by the same flaws, or you don't judge a society by the same flaws that every other one has. You judge it by what makes it exceptional, either worse, like a communist or fascist or Nazi country, or better, like America. I have a particular love of classical music, as you know. You know who love classical music the most, by far, certainly in the young generation, are Asians, Koreans, Chinese, and Japanese in particular. If you look at European orchestras, there are so many Asian players. The non-West may save the West. I'll tell you who may save Catholicism, and maybe all of Christianity, are Africans.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Larry Elder Show.
Anger, all this energy, all this passion for a bill that they consider to be racist. Have they read it? Have they seen the Yale study that shows that despite the so-called voter suppression measures, hasn't affected the black vote at all? If anything, it might have encouraged blacks to vote even more, as if to say, oh, really? You're trying to suppress my vote? I'll show you. No evidence whatsoever that these alleged voter suppression measures are in fact suppressing the black vote. None. Moreover, as I've said, poll after poll after poll over the years has shown that blacks support photo voter ID almost to the same degree as whites do. But here's what they're doing. They're characterizing the issue, as they always do, as an attack against black people. That way, blacks remain eternally angry. The Democrats continue their image as the party of pro-social justice, and they characterize the Republican Party as a party that wants to attack black people. Explain, if the Republican Party is a party that wants to attack black people, why it is that this black man, Representative Byron Donalds of Florida, said
Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt, joined now by former United States Senator from Missouri, Jim Talent. Senator, good morning. How are you?
Well, I'm fine. You've got a lot of heavyweights from Missouri on this morning.
It's Missouri Day. And Quinton Lucas, it didn't line up this way. We've got Eric Schmitt on next hour. It just happened to work out, and then you're in between. He's a formidable candidate, Jim Talent.
Well, yeah. I mean, I would agree with that. Now, I think that there's no reason in the world Missouri shouldn't hold this seat for the Republicans, and as a matter of fact, keep it really off the radar screen. But we have to nominate somebody who can make the election about the issues, which is the tax increases, Biden's border policies, what he's going to do to defense, the whole ball of wax. If the election is about what somebody was doing in their basement 3 years ago, then we could have a problem. And you know what I'm talking about.
I do, and so does Quinton Lucas. And you know, you heard he thinks Eric Greitens is going to be nominated because he immediately began to attack Eric Greitens. I didn't expect that, but we'll come back around on that. But that's what he's hoping for, right? Democrats like to pick their opponents in Missouri.
Yeah, and I think that's a pretty clear message to Republicans about who ought to be nominated or ought not to be nominated.
Yeah. Now, let me ask
elections are about what people are talking about. I mean, this I think is the clearest way of putting it. So, and you managed it in your interview with Governor Greitens, which I thought was very fair. I mean, if he's the nominee, the elections are going to be about his personal scandals, what he was doing in the basement, what happened with his nonprofit. And I don't want it to be about that. I want it to be about the national issues, and in particular what the Biden administration is doing and whether Democrats like Mayor Lucas would be supporters of the Biden agenda, which I think they would be. Okay.
And every election is a national election now in the Senate. Every election.
Exactly. And this is something I don't think Governor Greitens understands. I mean, I've been through this, and it's the way it was when I was running times 10 now. These are Senate races are watched internationally. They're funded internationally. And everything about Eric Greitens is going to come out. And look, if he wanted to vindicate himself, I'm talking about Governor Greitens, he should have stayed in office and fought it out. That's what Donald Trump did when he was attacked, right? He stayed in office and fought it out. That was the opportunity to do it, not in a Senate race, which is about a lot bigger issues than any one individual.
Now, I wanted to ask you, with regard to the Senate as a whole, Joe Manchin has an op-ed in the Washington Post in which he declares, I'm not going to change the filibuster, and by the way, reconciliation should not replace regular order. I was very cheered by that. What did you think?
Yeah, and he's not the only one. I mean, I think there were 7 Democrats who voted against waiving the Byrd rule to put the minimum wage bill on the stimulus bill that they passed. There's always maneuvering around what you can and can't put on reconciliation. You remember ANWR, the Arctic National Wildlife Reserve.
Yep.
When I was in the Senate, we were able to reshape the bill to put it on reconciliation. So this is more or less normal, this kind of maneuvering, but not to try and pass, regulatory bills, normal kinds of bills on reconciliation. Manchin's right, and I think he speaks probably for a half dozen Democrats.
What about the idea that Chuck Schumer has a ruling from the parliamentarian that says he can amend the reconciliation instructions and thereby get another bite at the apple, indeed an infinite bite at the apple, with 51 votes?
Well, in the first place, that's what Chuck Schumer says. So let's see if that's what the parliamentarian really is saying, and let's get the details of it, okay? And also, and I have to go back and research this. I mean, I think there have been years when they passed more than one reconciliation bill, but that doesn't mean you can put anything on reconciliation. You can put tax changes on reconciliation, and the process by which you do it, by the way, is pretty difficult. And let's have a vote on these tax changes. I mean, Biden's already backing away from the corporate stuff.
Yes,
right?
he is. Yes, he is.
And so, let's see if they get 50 votes for these. I mean, I have a feeling they can. Tax increases aren't very popular.
Yeah.
I mean, what we've seen so far is they've spent an enormous amount of money, and now they want enormous tax increases. And that's really what they did in 2009, too.
And Jamie Dimon said yesterday there's going to be a boom. And there has to be a boom when you spend this much money. Money's got to go somewhere. It's going to go into stocks and real estate. When does that boom end in your experience, Jim? Is it a year or is it 2 years?
I'm not sure there's going to be a boom. When you funnel it through the networks and the apparatuses they're funneling it through, I don't know how economically productive that is.
Oh,
they
interesting.
Passed a $900 billion stimulus in 2009, predicted 4% growth, and what do we get? Like 1% growth? I mean, it was a recovery that looked like a recession. So I'm not so sure we're going to have a boom. There'll be a recovery of kind. Let's see what the economy does with this.
Wow, that's very, very interesting. Jim Talent, always a pleasure, because when Jamie Dimon says boom, I usually believe him, but you're right. We were supposed to have a boom.
Right. I mean, I'm not an economist, I mean, I'm just an old Midwestern politician.
Yeah, sure you are. Just like Quinton Lucas is, Mayor Q. Good to have you, Senator. Follow him at Jim Talon on Twitter. Follow me to hour number 3. Steve Stivers of Ohio, Mo Brooks of Alabama, Eric Schmitt of Missouri. They're all coming up on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Even when they're not on some cable channel shock jock platform, they don't care. One of the bravest, best Americans I know was my colleague, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. She's sitting there at the White House Correspondents Association annual dinner when somebody else who says she's a comedian, well, says this as she's standing next to her.
Every time Sarah steps up to the podium, I get excited because I'm not really sure what we're going to get. You know, a press briefing, a bunch of lies, or divided into softball teams. It's shirts and skins, and this time don't be such a little Jim Acosta. I actually really like Sarah. I think she's very resourceful. Like, she burns facts, and then she uses that ash to create a perfect smoky eye. Like, maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's lies. It's probably lies. And I'm never really sure what to call Sarah Huckabee Sanders. You know, is it Sarah Sanders? Is it Sarah Huckabee Sanders? Is it Cousin Huckabee? Is it Auntie Huckabee Sanders? Like, what's Uncle Tom but for white women who disappoint other white women?
Hilarious, Michelle Wolf. So when that party, when those people who voted for Joe Biden and for Hillary Clinton tell you they care about the illegal immigrants crossing our border, they're lying to you. They don't give a damn.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
You cease to amaze me is sometimes the stupidity that comes out of your mouth.
The expression is never cease to amaze me as you're calling me stupid. I'm just saying.
About the George Floyd trial.
Actually, it's the Derek Chauvin trial. George Floyd is dead.
YouTube last
so as you call me stupid, just pointing out a few things.
year, they had white officers answering calls to white people. Two of them had knives, and in both instances, the officers took them down without any incident. Why don't you have your research staff research that sometimes before you go around flapping your gums about...
flapping my gums? Is that racist?
It seems like you just on one side of the fence all the time, the one that butters your bread, I guess. So you have a nice evening.
On one side of the fence all the time, the one that butters your bread, you have a nice evening. I will say one more time, sir. The police kill every year more unarmed whites than they kill unarmed blacks. Heather McDonald says that a black man is 18.5 times more likely to kill a white cop than the other way around. Is that relevant to you? The number one cause of preventable death for young white men is accidents, car accidents, drownings, things like that. Number one cause of preventable death for young black men, homicide, almost always at the hands of another young black man. The percentage of blacks who are unarmed, killed by cops, represents roughly 1/3 of 1% of all the blacks who are killed in this country every year. Is that at all relevant?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
And they are not insurgents. And we are not being invaded, which, by the way, is a white supremacist idea, philosophy.
She doesn't know what philosophy means, and that's okay. She's not very bright. She has a very big, very substantial following, I should say. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is articulating why she's angry at the people that are angry, that the left seems completely uninterested in complaining that the Biden administration is actually doing everything on the border worse than the Trump administration. But why is it that it feels as if we are slow to move against Joe Biden? I remember against Barack Obama. It was organic. It was real. There was a response that was unscripted. Patriots across the country rose up and started Tea Party groups. Candidates ran for office. Rick Santelli's famous rant in 2009 or 2010. And I'm reminded by a phrase that substance does not matter as much as style in the eyes of most voters. You see, what we make fun of Joe Biden for is actually a winning quality to most voters. The fact that Joe Biden is kind of sleepy and slow, the fact that Joe Biden falls upstairs, which is a rather remarkable thing, it's exactly what the ruling class wants. You see, Joe Biden is like the grandparent that kind of falls asleep in front of the television at 7 o'clock.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Did you move to LA from New York?
I moved very shortly thereafter because while I couldn't write for Letterman, I was perfect for Johnny Carson. And so I asked my now friend, David Letterman, would he please send a package out to his connections? He's already been guest hosting that show for years and whatnot.
So what happened? The Tonight Show said, nah, we're not interested.
Yeah, Johnny was going through a miserable divorce. And by the way, I remember the very first joke because he did use some of the material I sent out. The very first joke. Now, you wouldn't be able to do this joke today because it's body shaming. And you have to remember the reference is, I guess now 35, maybe even, gosh.
Is this a Toady Fields joke or a Mama Cass Elliott joke?
Sort of. All right. Remember Karnak the Magnificent? The answer is hip, hip, hooray. The question, describe Liz Taylor putting on her jeans.
That is a great joke. What do you mean you can't do a joke like that today? That is a great joke. You just did it on this program. I love it. Hip, hip. So has that joke ever appeared anywhere?
Yes, every time I'm on the air.
Every time you're on the air. Hip, hip, hooray. Well, when you write a joke like that, that's like I think Dick Cavett's first major joke was there's a new restaurant and it's Chinese German. The only problem is an hour after you eat there, you're hungry for power.
That's a great joke. Yep.
It's a stupid joke, but I mean, anyway. Okay, so hip hip hooray.
Now, can I tell a slightly off-color joke?
If you don't, we'll be offended.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Coca-Cola, cowards, read the damn bill. It doesn't suppress anybody unless you're of the mindset, if you're black, you're too dumb to figure out how to get ID to vote. That's suppression because we know how black people are. We know how brown people are. They're not intelligent enough to get an ID put together. They can't go down to the DMV or they can't figure out a way to get just a state ID. They can't. We can't expect our poor black friends to do that. That's the left. That's the mindset. That's the thinking of Democrats. Now, Ed Bastian's company, Delta, won't be so forgiving.
Morning, Glory America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. It's Hugh Hewitt. Thank you for listening this morning. Now, we folks in northeastern Ohio, from Warren and Ashtabula, we're not really sure about Ripley, Ohio. We are told it is part of the Buckeye State, but it is so far to the south, we're a little bit unsure of that. Congressman Steve Stivers is the representative for the Ohio's 15th Congressional District, butting up down there along Kentucky. Good morning, Congressman. Welcome.
Hey, good morning, Hugh. It's great to be with you this morning. And, it's true. I'm from Southern Ohio, and I'm a Reds fan, and they're 5-0. And I need to crow now because I'm not sure they'll have that good a season.
Yeah, I've never, ever been against the Reds, but you're probably a Bungles fan, too. And I love beating the Bungles.
It's been a really tough couple decades to be a Bengals fan, but I'm still a Bengals fan. And Joe Burrows, another great Ohio kid who's really done well. He's from my district, and I'm looking forward to great things from him. If they have a line that can protect him, maybe he'll be okay.
Yeah, they're going to draft a tackle, I think, in the first round. Now, Congressman Stivers, do you have the Bobcats, Ohio University in your district, or are they somewhere else?
I do have the Bobcats. They're in my district, and they had a nice little run. They helped bust my bracket along with my Ohio State Buckeyes, who lost in the first round to Oral Roberts University. So,
and they broke the heart of Fred Barnes, a UVA Cavalier through and through. But the Bobcats, I didn't even know that was a degree-granting institution. My son went to Miami, so we were never really sure of that. I guess they got under the junior college exemption. Let me get serious with you, Congressman. And by the way, Major General Stivers, I assume you're still on active duty in the Ohio National Guard. Am I right about that?
I am. Major General? I am. I just got promoted to Major General in January. Yes, sir. Thanks.
Congratulations. And how often do you have to show up in that job as a Major General? It's kind of hard to do that on a couple of weeks a year basis, isn't it?
It is. I do it more than that. I probably end up doing National Guard drills 2 or 3 days a month, and then I end up doing a few weeks through the year as well. And obviously it's a little different when you're a Major General. I end up doing it in smaller clumps because there's things I have to go to do to speak to troops or to give a speech to somebody or to, check on how folks are doing with a mission. But it's not usually as long in duration as, when I was a captain or a major.
Does that take you all over the state, or does it keep you in your district? I would imagine a Major General in the Ohio National Guard has to go everywhere.
It takes me all over the state and sometimes all over the country.
Have you been blessed to be able to go to Warren, Ohio, seat of the Western Reserve and home of all things good and true and noble?
Absolutely have, and we have just not too far from there. We have the Ravenna Arsenal that is now called Camp James A. Garfield that is a great place that we do some tank maneuvers, and our National Guard soldiers can do a ton of stuff there because it's a giant base. So we're really blessed to have that in Ohio.
We are hoping that Ravenna becomes a point in the missile defense program. I'm not sure if that decision has been made yet, but I know the Valley really wants missile defense to go into Ravenna.
It would have been great. The East Coast Missile Defense, they've delayed that decision. We were in the top 3, so some places in New York. There are 2 sites in New York State. There is a site in Michigan around Battle Creek and a site at Ravenna. So I'm still, hopeful. It looks like they were, in second place, not first place, but last I heard the Defense Department delayed that decision. So I don't think it's officially been made.
Now we got to go over and work our friends on the House Armed Services. So, Congressman, I'm keeping an open mind on the Ohio Senate race, and I want to have everyone on who's going to be. So it's going to take most of my show for the rest of the year because, honestly, there's like 20 people running. Have you made up your mind yet whether you're going to go for the seat being vacated by Rob Portman?
Well, thanks, Hugh. I have not made up my mind yet, but I announced yesterday we raised $1.4 million in the quarter. I believe that's actually going to be the biggest haul of any of the candidates. One of the candidates announced that she raised $2.1 million, but I have a very strong suspicion there's a 7-figure check, personal check in that total. So I think we've outraised the field as a non-announced candidate, which I feel pretty good about. It says that there's a real opportunity for me and there's a lot of support for me. I'm the only one in the field who's actually been a legislator at the state level and the federal level who's passed a bill. One of the other candidates was a state rep for 4 years and didn't pass a single bill. And life isn't just about passing bills. It's about getting things done and fighting for what's important. I know I can do that because I have done it. I voted 92% of the time with President Trump on issues. But at the same time, as a general and a military guy, I do think everybody should be treated with respect. And I have to admit, sometimes I felt like the president didn't always treat people well. And so I did have some differences with the president, but they weren't usually on policy. And I think he was taking the country in the right direction. We had a record-breaking economy. I want to get to work and get us back to that because we need it.
Now, Congressman, when we've got the Ohio State University grads, and Josh Mandel, J.D. Vance, and you, and two Marines, Vance and Mandel, and an Army guy, you, they are not major generals. You are. And then you've got over here Jane Timken, and I begin to think maybe the last man standing is going to be the woman because she's the only woman in the race. Does that worry you?
It doesn't. I think people will grade us on what we've done. And when you look through everybody's resume, I like Jane. She was a good state party chair, but she really hasn't done much else, so that she doesn't have the sort of paradigm to view very important decisions in the United States Senate that the others do as former state elected officials and military officers and or enlisted folks in both their cases. So it's I think she's a nice lady, and I think she'd be a great senator. If she's our nominee, I'll support her. But I'm not sure that just being a woman is going to get her through the primary.
No, I'm going to come to Cleveland at WHK and host a debate. Everybody kind of trusts me in this. Can we get you up for that when it happens, Congressman?
If I'm in the race, I'll be there for sure.
And when do you make that decision? When do you think you have to make that decision by?
I figure I've got the rest of this next quarter. As long as I'm continuing to gain support, I think I can make the decision. I think the 4th of July is kind of a symbolic time to think about freedom and the future of our country, and it's kind of a good time for me to have made a decision by, in my opinion, because the freedom of our country is at stake, and I think that's a great time to decide what I'm going to do.
Now, Congressman, I spent Tuesday night with Peter Thiel at the Nixon seminar, and Mike Pompeo and Robert O'Brien, and Peter Thiel pushed $10 million into a fund that's going to help J.D. Vance. What's your reaction to that?
Well, you have to raise the hard money as well. So that $10 million, you probably know, I ran the House Campaign Committee in 2018. That $10 million in a super PAC pays 2.5 times a higher rate than the candidate rate. So it spends like about $4 million, but it's still serious money. And it, frankly, there's a lot of things you can't do in a super PAC. So if J.D. Vance is going to do this, he's still going to have to raise real money, not just get one big check from somebody he used to work for. And it's great that somebody believes in you that much, but that's not going to be enough to win a race.
So my question is, on that debate stage, when we have a half dozen people running, because I guess a couple of your colleagues might get in as well, what's going to be the issue that differentiates Congressman Stivers from Josh Mandel, from Jane Timken, from J.D. Vance?
Number one, it's experience. I know how to get things done. I've done it. Number two, I don't just talk. I've actually, done stuff. And I think those are two important things. And I believe my military record, the fact that, it's great to serve your country, and several of us have, but I've served for 35 years and been promoted to the rank of Major General, 2-star General, which I think shows that I know how to get things done. I think those are some really important points that the voters of Ohio need to learn. And when they learn them, I feel confident that they'll be for me.
Well, keep coming back on, Congressman, and I look forward to seeing you on the stage up in Cleveland when we do that, maybe in Columbus as well. But with all those Buckeyes around, I don't know who's going to out-Buckeye everybody else, but it certainly what doesn't hurt to come from the university. But remember,
it does not.
That Ohio University, be very careful about their degrees, Congressman. Very, very careful. We Miami people are suspicious of that. Be well.
Both my parents went to Miami, so I.
Oh, they did. Okay, so you know the real school is Miami.
I do.
Right. Thank you, Congressman. Don't go anywhere, America. I'm going to come right back. I've got two more Senate candidates coming up. Representative Mo Brooks is going to join me. He just got endorsed by Donald Trump in Alabama. Missouri Attorney General Eric Schmitt is going to join me. He is going to be running in Missouri. It's sort of like Senate 2022 today. Stay tuned. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Don't forget to sign up for the Hughiverse. All of Hugh's broadcasts on demand, the after show, which in my opinion is worth the price all by itself, Dwayne FM, and all sorts of bonus content. www.hughiverse.com.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Did you move to LA from New York?
I moved very shortly thereafter because while I couldn't write for Letterman, I was perfect for Johnny Carson. And so I asked my now friend, David Letterman, would he please send a package out to his connections? He's already been guest hosting that show for years and whatnot.
So what happened? The Tonight Show said, nah, we're not interested.
Yeah, Johnny was going through a miserable divorce. And by the way, I remember the very first joke because he did use some of the material I sent out. The very first joke. Now, you wouldn't be able to do this joke today because it's body shaming. And you have to remember the reference is, I guess now 35, maybe even, gosh.
Is this a Toady Fields joke or a Mama Cass Elliott joke?
Sort of. All right. Remember Karnak the Magnificent? The answer is hip, hip, hooray. The question, describe Liz Taylor putting on her jeans.
That is a great joke. What do you mean you can't do a joke like that today? That is a great joke. You just did it on this program. I love it. Hip, hip. So has that joke ever appeared anywhere?
Yes, every time I'm on the air.
Every time you're on the air. Hip, hip, hooray. Well, when you write a joke like that, that's like I think Dick Cavett first major joke was there's a new restaurant and it's Chinese German. The only problem is an hour after you eat there, you're hungry for power.
That's a big joke. Yep.
It's a stupid joke, but I mean, anyway. Okay, so hip hip hooray.
Now, can I tell a slightly off-color joke?
If you don't, we'll be offended.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Coca-Cola, cowards, read the damn bill. It doesn't suppress anybody unless you're of the mindset, if you're black, you're too dumb to figure out how to get ID to vote. That's suppression because we know how black people are. We know how brown people are. They're not intelligent enough to get an ID put together. They can't go down to the DMV or they can't figure out a way to get just a state ID. They can't. We can't expect our poor black friends to do that. That's the left. That's the mindset. That's the thinking of Democrats. Now, Ed Bastian's company, Delta, won't be so forgiving for somebody who's too ignorant to get an ID and let them get on their plane. Because you can't fly Delta without a photo ID, a legitimate ID. But don't you dare expect a black or brown Georgian to be smart enough to figure out how to produce an ID when they vote. That's suppression. No, that's not suppression. That's idiocy. That is stupidity at the highest level, and everybody knows it. So good for the Georgia State Legislature for pushing back and telling Delta to go stick it in your ear. They ought to say the same thing. They don't do the same thing to Coca-Cola, to Home Depot, to any of these companies who are playing this pitiful game of lying about the Georgia election integrity law. They are lies.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
Right now, if it hasn't happened, it will happen. They will simply declare classics as an example of white supremacy.
Absolutely. I think that is where we're headed. And it's a shame because classics really taught me how to analytically think and critically think, and I think that's where I developed a lot of the foundation for being able to reason through things. And it's funny, I came out as a conservative maybe 6 or 7 months ago, and a lot of people who had also studied classics, even though
"22 minutes after the hour, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Meet me here in the morning. You'll hear everything you need to know." President Biden gave an infrastructure speech yesterday. It was interesting. Cut number 4.
When we do invest in research, what we're really doing is raising the bar on what we can imagine. Imagine a world where you and your family can travel coast to coast without a single tank of gas, or in a high-speed train, close to as fast as you can go across the country in a plane. Imagine your children growing up.
For a second. That's not possible. Imagine being able to go from New York City to California on a train as fast as you can on
in
a
5
plane.
hours.
In 5 hours.
It's not going to happen.
I don't know. Does it have rockets?
It's not. What kind of energy is going to take a train to go 570 miles an hour?
He is obviously not acquainted with the environmental laws of the United States. We're never going to build anything in this country again because of the NEPA and because of endangered species or anything. But even if you could build high-speed rail, I've been on high-speed rail in Japan. It ain't that high speed.
It goes maybe 200.
Yeah, I mean, it's just still not gonna do.
It's less than half of what a plane can cruise speed-wise.
Even at it, and we're never going to build it. So it's all fantasy. But infrastructure turns out to be a lot more than hypothetical trains. Cut number 5.
I promise you, it's not part of my speech, but I promise you, you're all going to be reporting.
Whenever you hear that, it's not
over the
part
next
of my
6
speech.
to 8 months.
Listen very closely, because then you got Joe riffing. Go ahead.
How China and the rest of the world is racing ahead of us in the investments they have in the future, attempting to own the future, the technology, quantum computing, investing significant amounts of money in dealing with cancer and Alzheimer's. That's the infrastructure of a nation. There's a new book out about how we've fallen behind. America is no longer the leader of the world because we're not investing. It used to be we invested almost 2.7% of our GDP in infrastructure. Now it's about 0.7%. When we were investing it,
a lot of that went to the Department of Defense and DARPA. Used to be that we invested 4% of GDP in national defense. If we go back to 4% of GDP in national defense, our R&D will increase in the places it needs to increase. By the way, as much as I'd love to cure Alzheimer's and cancer, it's not infrastructure spending. It just isn't. You know what infrastructure is? It's houses and ports and roads and grids. And if you're going to work on your own personal infrastructure, you got to go to andrewandtodd.com. There with Sierra Pacific Mortgage, great sponsor of the show. And it's where you go to borrow money. They are lenders. Sierra Pacific Mortgage lends you the money. AndrewandTodd.com are lenders. They do soup to nuts. They begin at the beginning. They end at the end. They help you every step of the way, whether you got to refinance or buy. Now, I said earlier today, Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan said we are in a boom, a Goldilocks moment. And that is most manifest in a housing market that is absolutely nuts. And I mean, across the country, it's 11% up year over year. But in the hot markets like Austin, Texas, and Maine, and Florida, it's just crazy. People are leaving California, right? They got to go somewhere. People are leaving New York State. They got to go somewhere. Lee Zeldin just announced he's running for governor to save the Empire State from Andrew Cuomo. Good luck with that. I mean, like California, you leave a state in the hands of the Democrats for too long, you can't turn it around. But if you get out of New York, you got to move somewhere. And so Maine real estate is nuts. Atlanta real estate is nuts. Texas real estate is nuts. And AndrewandTodd.com lend money all over the place. They are the people that you go to. to get that work done. So call them at 888-888-1172 or go visit their website, andrewandtodd.com. Answer a couple of questions, and they will help you get the loan that you need. When we come back, Mo Brooks, Congressman extraordinaire from Alabama. Mo Brooks got the much-wanted endorsement of Donald Trump yesterday. I think he's the next senator from Alabama as a result. We'll talk with him about that. Don't go anywhere, America. It's Hugh Hewitt.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show brought to you by Sierra Pacific Mortgage. For more info, call 888-888-1172.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Biden makes these assertions about this Georgia law. Says you can't give people water. Says it shrinks voting hours. Both of which are lies. Now, as you know, a man who now lives in Florida was dogged for 4 years with a running tab by one of the major newspapers about all the lies he tells. Biden tells this big, massive lies, does them quietly, doesn't scream or yell. Media doesn't say a damn thing. Now, is that because the media doesn't know he's lying? Or doesn't care? Biden said, and Nancy Pelosi just reiterated it yesterday, that 83%, notice it's never 82, never 84, it's always 83, 83% of the Trump tax cuts went to the top 1%. It's a lie. Factcheck.org says it's not true. That's a left-wing organization run by the Annenberg Foundation that's also left-wing, the Annenberg Center. PolitiFact, also run by a left-wing organization, said it's not true. Washington Post. The Washington Post, as you know, has not endorsed a Republican for president in its entire history. That's how left-wing they are. They said it's not true. The left claimed the top 1% are undertaxed. It's a lie. My point is, Biden says these things.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
I had a kind of epiphany today. Maybe I'm a big softy deep down. If you believe that, I got a bridge to sell you. But sometimes, especially, let me get personal. Not when I get attacked, but even then, when it's really vituperative, when it's really despicable, I have a certain feeling. But when they attack my family, and when they've attacked my children, there's usually a point in the year where I just find myself asking a certain question, a very human question. Why do they do that? Why would you do that to a fellow human being? And it puzzles me because I could never do that. I can be harsh. I can be very robust in what I say. Some would say aggressive. But it's not because I detest and wish to destroy human beings. I'm a rational human, and I can separate the person from the ideology, the sin from the sinner. I don't wish to destroy my fellow man. If you threaten my family, I will kill you. That is what every father and husband should be prepared to do. You try to use lethal force against somebody I love, and I will die to save them.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
This is a teacher-student dialogue of a Zoom class in Virginia. Listen carefully. Play tape.
Tell me what this seems to be a picture of.
It's just two people chilling.
Right, just two people. That's nothing more to that picture?
Nah, not really. Just two people chilling.
I don't believe that you believe that. I don't believe that you look at this as just two people. I don't think
Truly
you can
is
look
just
at
two
this as
people,
just
though, is it not?
Yeah, but I think you're being intentionally coy about what this is a picture of.
What would I be being coy about? It's two people standing back to back in a picture.
Yeah, and that's all you see is two people.
I'm confused on what you would like me to speak on in that
I don't
sense.
think you are.
Well, I'm confused. Are you trying to get me to say that there are two different races in this picture?
Yes,
is that
I am
what
asking
you want
you
me
to
to
say
say? Well, at the end of the day, wouldn't that just be feeding into the problem of looking at race instead of just acknowledging them as two normal people?
No, it's not, because you can't look at people and not acknowledge that there are racial differences, right?
But if we're going for, let's say if we're looking for equality within all this, then why would we need to point out things such as that?
Because those differences are real things.
Those differences are real things, says the eugenicist teaching your children. Margaret Sanger.
Welcome back, America. Hugh Hewitt, joined now by Congressman Mo Brooks of Alabama. Good morning, Congressman. Great to have you on.
My pleasure, Hugh. Good to be on again with you.
Congratulations. Yesterday, Donald Trump endorsed you to replace the retiring Richard Shelby in the Senate in the great state of Alabama. That is tantamount to winning the nomination, I think. Did you go down and meet with the president first?
No, I've not seen the president in person since last year. We've had lots of telephone conversations, and I do intend on going down to Mar-a-Lago in a couple of weeks. It'll be nice to visit with him again.
Well, am I not correct that any Republican not named Roy Moore wins that seat if nominated, and getting President Trump's nomination or endorsement is a long way to getting the nomination?
Well, that's true in that about 99% of the statewide elections since 2010, the Republican nominee has won. Roy Moore, for a variety of reasons, unfortunately, was the only one who did not.
So, do you expect other people to drop out now, Congressman?
We had the Alabama Secretary of State, John Merrill, drop out yesterday. He was number 2 in the polls. We've still got one other candidate who has announced. She's got very little name recognition, but she's a self-funder, put in around $5 million. We'll see how that plays out. There undoubtedly will be other candidates who will consider it, but as of this moment, it's a two-person race, and I'm up significantly in the polls over the actual and rumored candidates.
So you're going to go to the United States Senate, in my humble opinion. What is your goal?
Well, Hugh, I hope you're a sage and a prophet.
Well, I'm neither a prophet nor a son of a prophet, but I follow this stuff pretty closely, and I've had on this morning Steve Stivers, who's running in Ohio. Eric Schmitt is running in Missouri, is coming up next. Jim Talent's been on. I had Mayor Q of Kansas. I love the Senate races, so I kind of follow it closely, and I think you've got it in the bag. But my question is, what do you want to do when you get there?
Well, I want to do everything I can to defend and promote the foundational principles that have made America the greatest nation in world history. First and foremost would be the Bill of Rights. Our First Amendment freedom of speech is under attack. Our freedom of religion is under attack. Our Second Amendment right to bear arms is under attack. That's just the Bill of Rights. Then you've got whether we're going to continue to be a republic. Our election system is under attack by the socialists as they try to rig and steal elections. You've got moral values. They're the compass that guide a great nation to do good things rather than bad things with the power that they enjoy. And our moral values are under attack. I mean, some of the things that you just take for granted, like knowing the difference between a man and a woman. Apparently, Socialist Democrats are confused about that, and they believe that it's perfectly fine to allow a man who pretends to be a woman to compete against women in women college athletics. That's science denial. But that's on the moral value side, and that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg. And then another big battle is socialism versus free enterprise. Free enterprise is based on liberty, freedom, as the name suggests. Socialism is dictatorial, top-down. Government tells you what you can and cannot do with your God-given talents. So socialism has never worked in any nation that's tried it. Free enterprise has worked. It's generated the greatest economy in the history of the world here in the United States of America, and that empowers us to do a lot of things that they otherwise could not do. So I'm going to be a staunch defender and supporter of free enterprise. The list just goes on and on and on. But I'll tell you, I'm not going to be a wallflower in the United States Senate. I'm a fighter, and I believe that our country is worth fighting for. And while these socialists have made significant gains in 2018 and 2020's election cycles, by golly, they're going to have to run me down to keep me from doing what I think our country needs doing to protect our stature as number one in the world.
Now, Congressman, you're on armed services, and I want to talk mostly about that. I'll come back to voting in a second. I want to talk about armed services. Can you persuade 2 or 3 of your colleagues across the aisle that if they're going to pass another couple of $1 trillion in so-called infrastructure spending, that we at least put some into shipbuilding and port construction and the defense of the United States, because we spent $6 trillion this year and not a penny of it's been for defense spending?
I don't believe that I have the persuasive ability to convince a single socialist Democrat to do what you just suggested. And I don't know that anybody else in the United States Congress does either.
You only need 4. Are there not 4 Democrats in the United States House of Representatives who will make the Speaker spend some money on defense?
Well, spending money on defense is a little bit different than coming out of the infrastructure bill. We will have money spent on defense, but our defense expenditures, I'm sure, will come under attack on the Armed Services Committee in both the House and Senate side, and also in the Appropriations Committees. Whether we can resist those attacks, that's going to be the big battleground, and I'm not sure. But certainly we have a lot of socialist Democrats who are pacifists. And by the way, I'm somewhat hesitant, Hugh, about using the word Democrats. Democratic Party used to be an honorable institution. It no longer is. It's been hijacked by the socialist movement in America. And so I call them socialist Democrats, or just plain socialists.
Now, I think you've got Congresswoman Luria, who is a commander in the United States Navy on armed services. Can't you get together with her and persuade someone to build some shipbuilding lines somewhere, or cybersecurity or infrastructure? I mean, there've got to be some sane Democrats.
Well, I believe we will have that kind of debate, and some of those debates will be successful when we do the National Defense Authorization Act and when we do the appropriation bills related to defense. It just won't be in the context of the infrastructure bill that you brought up earlier. But having said that, please bear in mind that the socialists vote lockstep with each other as a bloc. We might get 1 defector or 2 defectors every now and then, but in the House of Representatives, even though it's a very, very close margin of majority for the Democrats over the Republicans that ensconces Nancy Pelosi in power, we have yet to win a single substantive vote on the floor of the House. And that gives you an idea as to how lockstep these radicals are as they walk arm in arm, doing great damage to our country.
I've got to think that on the craziest parts of the tax bill, Congressman Brooks, like doing away with stepped-up basis, which would just rob an entire generation of tens of billions of dollars of equity saved by their parents and grandparents, that some Democrats don't want to lose in 2022. And I mean, you're going to redistrict in 2022, and they're going to get wiped out if they do that.
Well, the so-called moderates in the Democratic Party ranks, if there are moderates left, they're in a real bind. If they vote for America, they lose their Democratic primary. If they vote with the radical socialist wing of their party, then they win their primary, but they're more apt to lose their general election. History has shown us that they're much more willing to take a chance at losing in a general election than they are at losing in a Democrat primary. Hence, they vote lockstep with their colleagues. They may have some reservations about some of the things that the socialists are doing on Capitol Hill, but those reservations are not great enough to actually get them to vote for America on a consistent basis.
Now, Congressman, let's turn to the Georgia voting law. I'm going to put up a petition at HughHewitt.com because I think the Georgia voting law is perfectly fine. I think it's a voting security law, and it's been libeled and slandered by America's media. And Major League Baseball moved the All-Star game. And that I'm a big baseball fan, but I am mad. I'm not buying a ticket this year Has the blowback been sufficient to get them or Coca-Cola or Delta to reconsider?
I hope so, but what we as Americans have to understand is that the socialists have been very adept and very adroit at using their threatened boycotts and other extortionist means to cause businesses to side with socialist policies, even when the business owners abhor what they're doing. But they're afraid of losing the business and losing their ability to survive in a tough marketplace, losing their profits, and suddenly engaging in losses. And what we on the conservative side have to do, if you believe in your country, if you believe in the United States of America, if you see this onslaught against our values, then we have to counterbalance what the socialists are doing by organizing boycotts against the businesses that don't have the spine to do what's in the best interest of our country. So we have to do everything we can to make sure those businesses stay neutral. And I should add that the boards of directors of those businesses, the officers of those businesses that are engaging in this kind of political conduct, they have serious liability risk to the shareholders, because the officers of those corporations and the board of directors of those corporations, they have a fiduciary duty to their shareholders to maximize profit. And when they engage in these political activities, they are shirking their fiduciary duty to those shareholders. And if I'm a shareholder of a company that starts losing money because of these companies dipping their toes into political matters that really aren't their primary reason for existence, then I start suing those those board of director members and those officers who have caused those financial losses. And so I hope that any shareholder that is listening to my voice, if you see your company start to lose money because of the political activity of the company that you own shares in, well, then you need to hold your board of director members and you need to hold your officers of that corporation accountable. And if I could, Hugh, just 1 second, I know we're about to run out of time. If you want to help me win the Senate race, put a strong conservative voice, a principled conservative in the United States Senate, go to mobrooks.com. Really easy to remember, mobrooks.com. I need your help.
No, I'll consider doing that, Congressman, and telling it over and over again. If I can get an admission from you that the SEC is a cartel that ought to be broken up, and they own the referees, and that's why Ohio State doesn't get past them. Can we get that admission from you?
I'm afraid, Hugh, you can't, but you could from the in-law side of the family, because my father-in-law is an Ohio State graduate. My wife went to a whole lot of Ohio State games because my parents-in-law had season tickets for decades.
There's hope for you.
With Ohio State, but look, we're just better. This is free enterprise competition. We're just better.
And you're a Duke guy too, aren't you?
Well, we don't want to bring that up.
I was going to say, I was looking for him in the bracket this year, and I didn't find the Blue Devils anywhere. So
you're hitting me hard. Yes, unfortunately, the Blue Devils did not do that well. COVID-19 and a lot of other factors. The team just didn't mesh. These one and dones. I love the days when Coach K would go with people who actually went to college to get a degree. But that day is long gone with this one and done system. Duke, Kentucky, traditionally we have some of the best semi-pro teams in the NCAA tournament.
You're absolutely right on that. Congressman Mo Brooks, thank you. MoBrooks.com, MoBrooks.com. I appreciate it, Congressman. Don't go anywhere, America. Come right back here. I want to play for you one more time if you just tuned in. Peter Thiel at the Nixon Library on Tuesday night on Bitcoin, cut number 17.
From China's point of view, they want to get they don't like the U.S. having this reserve currency because it gives us, a lot of leverage over, Iranian oil supply chains and all sorts of things like that. They don't want the renminbi to become a reserve currency because then you have to open your capital account and you have to do all sorts of things that they really don't want to do. I think the euro, you could think of as, was in part a Chinese weapon against the dollar. It didn't. The last decade hasn't quite worked out that way, but that was, China would have liked to see two reserve currencies like the euro. And, even though I'm sort of a pro-crypto, pro-Bitcoin maximalist person, I do wonder whether at this point Bitcoin is also should also be thought in part as a Chinese financial weapon against the U.S., where
I think he's absolutely right, and we're going to post some of the highlight reels at HughHewitt.com and the Peter Thiel conversation at the NixonSeminar.com. Head over to HughHewitt.com. Be sure to sign the petition supporting the Georgia Voter Integrity Act. Let me also remind you, ReliefFactor.com sponsors the show. There's the all-time best-looking bag. got North Carolina blue, not Duke blue. It's got UNC Chapel Hill blue, bordered in lime green. You can't miss it. You put it in your car, you can't forget it. That's my advice to you. Just put it in your car. Honestly, I had a 3-hour drive yesterday back and forth across Southern California, and traffic is back, the 710 and the 5. Just a nightmare yesterday. Thank goodness for ReliefFactor.com. I'm already feeling better. 3 hours in the car is the surefire destroy me approach to commuting. But ReliefFactor.com works. I carry in curcumin, resveratrol, and omega. $19.95 gets you the starter pack. Come back. Eric Schmitt, Attorney General of Missouri, next. He's running for the Senate, too, on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
A few weeks ago, we had on the man who's going to be the next mayor of New York, Curtis Sliwa. Well, I thought, you know what? We've got some friends across the pond. Why don't we see if we can find out who's going to be the next mayor of London? We figured out who it is. I'm not kidding. His name is Lawrence Fox. Lawrence, welcome to the program.
Hi, Eric. How are you doing?
I'm good. You're hoarse from your first stump speech, aren't you?
I am a bit. I was quite nervous doing my first stump speech, I have to say.
People don't know this. Listen, I have to frame this, and you can feel free to interrupt me. And I'm not kidding, but I want people to understand that you're initially in your life, you're an actor. You're principally known as an actor. So people want to know, why did Lawrence Fox, the actor from the acting family, suddenly decide to go into politics and to say, yes, I would like to run to be the mayor of London? I mean, again, remember that most of the audience is American. They cannot fathom what's going on in London. So give us an idea for those of us who are not following the horrors of what your current mayor is doing.
Yeah, we'll get on to my current mayor. He's dreadful. I think the reason why I'm not acting now is because about a year and a couple of months ago, I went on a TV show in England called Question Time. I went on that show and I got into an argument with someone who said that I wasn't allowed a view because of my white privilege. And I said, let's not be racist to each other. That went down pretty badly. So my show business career ended pretty quickly after that, with the Actors Union in the UK calling for me to be denounced because I berated a woman of color.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
The Delta found out that the Georgia skies aren't so friendly to woke companies. And the takeaway from what's happening with Delta and Coca-Cola and Home Depot, and these are Georgia companies that are absolutely terrified of the Twitter mob. That's all it is. They haven't bothered to read the Georgia election integrity law because they don't care. What's in the law, truth doesn't matter to them. They just don't want to be hounded by a bunch of angry leftists who are in mama's bedroom, a basement in their underwear, furiously typing on their keyboards. So Missy writes, it's always nice when a progressive woke company that goes all political gets walloped with a face full of reality. And that's exactly what happened over at Delta. So for some reason, the Delta CEO issued a blistering statement condemning his company's home state and the efforts to have some voter integrity, some election integrity.
Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. It's been Senate Day on the Hugh Hewitt Show. Talking to Steve Stivers, who's running in Ohio, Mo Brooks, who's running in Alabama. I talked to Kansas City Mayor Quinton Lucas last hour. He's going to be the best Democrat in Missouri. And now I'm talking to Attorney General Eric Schmitt of Missouri. General Schmitt is also running for the United States Senate. Welcome, General. Good to have you on.
It's great to be with you, Hugh.
I'm alarmed. Kansas City Mayor Q is a pretty formidable candidate on the air.
Well, we intend to keep this seat in safe Republican hands. That's my view, and I think as you look around, the country right now, it feels as though our culture and country is sort of slipping away. And so my belief is that we need some fighters in Washington, D.C. That's been my record as Attorney General, fighting alongside President Trump and the agenda that brought unprecedented growth, energy independence, and a secure border. And then on the front lines right now, taking a blowtorch to this Biden agenda that's really radical, and they're only about 75 days in, undermining a lot of that progress that was made. And so we need reinforcements, and I really believe it's the time to save America. So, look, in a more philosophical sense, Hugh, I love this republic. I love this country. I believe in American exceptionalism. I think the founders got it right when they said everybody else had it wrong before, that our rights come from God and government's just our shared project to protect those rights. And we need people willing to stand up for that. And so that's why I'm running for the Senate.
Now, Eric Schmitt, General, I don't get involved in primaries and endorsing, but I do keep a wary eye. I've had Eric Greitens on the show. I don't think he's coming back. He didn't like my questions. I think he will lose that seat. I don't know if Jason Smith or you could lose that seat, but I think Eric Greitens can lose that seat. Do you agree with me?
Well, here's what I know. These races are a lot closer than people think in a state like Missouri. So Donald Trump won Missouri by 20 points in 16 and about 15 or 16 points this past year. I won, for example, by 22 points this last November. These Senate races are much closer than that. In that same sort of time period, Roy Blunt won by 3 points and Josh Hawley won by 6 points because there's obviously a national focus. So we definitely need somebody who can hold this seat. And so I feel like I'm the best person to do that.
And now tell me, how are you going to differentiate yourself from the other candidate? Eric Greitens is running as a wronged incumbent who was hounded out of office, and people can make up their minds about that. Jason Smith is running as President Trump's favorite guy. What is Eric Schmitt running as?
Well, look, I think talk is cheap, right? You look at somebody's record. And so we're really leading the country right now. Missouri has taken the lead, as I mentioned earlier, in taking on this really radical agenda. So, for example, in the first day of office, Joe Biden issues this executive order that deals with the Keystone XL pipeline. We're involved in that lawsuit to challenge that. He also created a working group, as he called it, with unelected cabinet members to decide what is the quote-unquote social cost of greenhouse gases. And so it's more like Nostradamus than it is Newton, right? They're predicting warfare and migration patterns and all these things hundreds of years in the future, pulling all of that back, and then giving a blank check to the EPA and transportation, all these agencies to overtax and overregulate every aspect of our lives, making things more expensive, like cars and microwaves. We're on the front lines fighting that. So if you look and see what the AGs are doing across the country to really push back, Missouri's in the lead on that. So if you look at the record, a lifelong conservative who's never going to quit on this state, that's Eric Schmitt.
No, I've sat down with David Yost, and we've talked about a number of the things he's brought to defend religious liberty. I know you're doing the same thing. What about big tech? Your predecessor, Josh Hawley, was going after big tech. He's continuing to do that in the Senate of the United States. I hope you've continued the investigation into Google.
Absolutely. So we're actually one of the states that were part of the William Barr Justice Department's antitrust suit. There were a handful of us that joined that antitrust suit against Google. We led the investigation into Facebook. Have also filed a lawsuit against Facebook for their anti-competitive behavior. I think this is an emerging, well, it's not emerging, it's here, it's right in front of us. I mean, you saw last night, Google/YouTube TV cancels, deletes this roundtable Governor DeSantis was having on how lockdowns don't work. And so they've taken an oversized part of our lives. They're restricting the amount of acceptable speech, narrowing that bandwidth of acceptable speech. And we've been very, very aggressive. So, yeah, that's part and parcel of what we're doing in our office. We're also, I was the first attorney general in the country to bring a lawsuit against communist China for their role in the coronavirus. It's unmistakable what their role was in hiding this. I mean, they knew about human-to-human transmission as early as November, early December, didn't tell the world until January 21st, and we're all still dealing with it. So, I'm somebody that's not afraid of that fight. And I believe in the law, and I believe in the Constitution, and I think that's, again, we need those kinds of folks standing up strong in the United States Senate.
Now, I don't want to geek out too much in our last minute, Attorney General Schmitt, and I hope you keep coming back. But Clarence Thomas dropped a bombshell whimsically sort of this week, saying maybe the market power of these big tech companies are so large that they fall under government action. What do you think about that?
So it's interesting. And actually, by the way, as a fun fact to you, not to geek out on you, Clarence Thomas got his start in the Missouri Attorney General's office under Jack Danforth in the 70s. And so we're very
I did
proud
know
of
that. I did know that. Yep.
So, well, and Jim Talent, I'm sure, was sort of a mentor to me over the years. I'm sure it's probably told a lot of people that too. But no, it's he brought up what's a very interesting legal theory that's been bandied about in legal circles, which is the common carrier, right? You sort of can liken it to the railroads and the trusts. So people can say, like, for example, when they say when Twitter, got rid of the president on their platform, well, go get another platform. Well, you saw what happened. Parler then tries to start another platform, and they're banished. So
it is ripe for you to keep on the crusade, keep coming back and telling us about it. Attorney General Eric Schmitt and America, come back tomorrow for the next Hugh Hewitt Show.